Gentlemen, you know it's about that time. It's Friday night, and we started the weekend earlier here on Sportswire Radio with some music, some talk, and everything else in between. But we're going to recap all the latest happenings here in the world of sports with three of my guys. That is literally off the presses of an Amazon truck and everywhere else. Who knows where he's been throughout Long Island? That is, of course, Justin Gianelli. Justin also does a great job for us with the Baseball Banter Show. And also Billy McInerney, who kind of snuck in there, almost kind of snuck in there like a running back in the 1 yard line going in for the touchdown. Of course, Billy does a great job for us, a number of different things. And the returning Chris Pizzea of the Liftoff Jet Show and the Talking Rivals. And, of course, certainly last but definitely not least, that is the legendary brute force Bradley Weiss of the Long Island Brew Crew, the Long Island Nets, Level Up, Plainview, JFK Boys JV team, and, of course, our SJC New York Golden Eagles. And, gentlemen, I would yell and say, how are you? But I've done it about 14 different times today throughout all of our platforms. So I'm going to just say, guys, how are you?
Doing good.
Doing good. Doing good. Chris, you're floating in midair.
What's that?
Am I?
Chris looks like he's floating in midair.
Oh, I put the blurry thing on. I got a few things in here. I was like, it looks kind of messy. So,
okay. Is there anything valuable? Is it anything that?
No. I could show you. Hold on. I could change it.
All right. No, you don't have to. I mean, I was just thinking, okay, maybe you got something.
It just looks different.
Yeah. That's all. All right, well, you know what? Be that as it may, we'll certainly move on here because I think a lot of people want to hear all the latest happenings in the world of sports. And I'll go to baseball in a bit, and I have Anthony Finkel here with us. He says, let's go, the boys are back. And obviously, I was speaking with Chris just before in the Brute Force before Justin and Billy jumped in here. As crazy as it sounds, we're less than 2 weeks away from the NFL season, and time certainly flies. And the Jets seem to be having injuries on all fronts, and I want to start with Chris Pizzea because, Chris, I'm going to get a chance to hear your Liftoff Jet Show here tomorrow on Sportswire Radio on sportnarium.com/player. And how you feeling about this Jets team right now as we go into week one?
I'm still feeling pretty good. I mean, other than the Wilson injury, there really isn't anything else that we're really that concerned about. So I'm not overly worried about that. I'm worried about week one, man. Week one, we're playing Baltimore. Baltimore's coming in very hungry, especially after last year with all the injuries they had. They had a rough year last year. So they're coming in big time to kind of erase that year, and get back into first place in their division at least or get a wild card this year. So I'm worried about that because our big weakness is stopping the run, and Baltimore is one of the best running teams in the game. So I'm definitely concerned about that game, but I feel pretty good. I mean, outside of the Wilson injury, thank God we got Joe Flacco as our backup. We have a decent backup. We're not running out there with somebody, we're crossing our fingers here. We got somebody who could hold his own, for a couple of games. I don't want to see Flacco all season, but for 2 or 3 games, I'm okay with it. So let's see how we do, man. I'm pretty excited about this year.
Well, let me get to a couple of comments here before I get to the Brute Force, Brad Weiss and the other guys here. And Anthony says Flacco for the win. And Anthony, last week, Chris, was talking about how he kind of wanted to see Flacco in there for a while. And you kind of gave us the opposite take. And I'm kind of inclined to agree because I think I want to see what Zach Wilson is made of. And definitely. I mean, does the longer Joe Flacco is in there as the starting quarterback, would that worry you with this team, especially with the first half of the schedule coming up for this team?
Well, I look at it this way. I mean, the best case scenario is he wins a couple of games, and then we got a problem. Then it's like if we're 3-0 or 2-0, do you like, all right, we got to bring back Wilson? You know what? Maybe they're going to ride the hot hand and keep Flacco in there. But I'm okay with him playing a couple of games. But like you, I want to see Wilson in there once he's healthy and ready to go. I want to see him out there. I mean, he's our supposedly future franchise quarterback. Let's see what he's got. We know what Flacco could do and what he can't do at this point in his career. He could hold the fort down for a couple of games. Yeah, that's fine. But after that, I definitely want to see Wilson. Trust me. Even if Flacco's 2-0, of course the big decision is going to be: do you run with the hot hand or do you bring Wilson back? I would say you got to bring Wilson back because, like you said, we got to see what this guy's about.
Yeah, I definitely agree about that. And Anthony Finkel says, ride the hot hand. And we'll certainly find out. Listen,
they might do it.
Things might change here. Oh, listen, things can
I hope he is
definitely.
hot after 2 games.
I hope so here for sure. And I want to bring in Justin Gianelli because, Justin, I definitely see that the Mets gave up some runs here, and it doesn't look too good. What's the score now at the Mets game before I ask you some thoughts on the Jets since we
6-4 Rockies. They just got a bases clearing 3-run double off of Michael Givens. So we're going to the bottom of the 8th, down 2.
Well, this isn't good because the brute force, and we'll get to you later on when it comes to baseball. You was singing, this division and the confidence, and those Atlanta Braves can't lose, and we'll definitely get your thoughts on that because there's no question that the Atlanta Braves are right there, and they could very well win the National League East. But I'll get to that in a little while. But Jets here, obviously, we're getting ready for the season. Week 1 coming up Sunday, 2 Sundays from now. Season starts in 13 days from now. And how you feeling about this Jets team here so far, Justin?
I feel pretty good. Like Chris said, the Zach Wilson injury does put a bit of a damper on the start of the season. But, having Joe Flacco is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. And honestly, having Joe Flacco open up the season against the Baltimore Ravens is not the worst thing in the world. I see a quarterback who's going to be absolutely motivated to just stick it to his former team and somebody who's going to go out there and probably play the game of his life. And, Baltimore is not a world beater. Baltimore is a good football team, but they're by no means a team that is impossible to beat. If you find your ways to slow Lamar Jackson down in the running game, you have a shot because he's not a good passing quarterback. He just isn't. I mean, his numbers last year were not great through the air. And you obviously know about his injury risk because he missed the last 5 games of last year. Tyler Huntley had to finish up the season. So, I don't look at this as a game the Jets can't win. I absolutely think the Jets have a shot here. And I absolutely still feel good going to the season when you start off with the Ravens and then you play the Cleveland Browns, who won't have Deshaun Watson. They're going to be starting Jacoby Brissett in week 2. So I still have a good early season feeling about this team. And I want the Jets to take their time with Zach. I want them to make sure his knee is 100% healthy and then put him back out there. If Joe Flacco starts the first 2-3 games, then so be it. But, obviously the end goal is to see where Zach Wilson is in his progress as a potential franchise quarterback. That's going to be the key. And the worst thing you could do is put him back out there in week 1 when he might not be 100%. Now, is there still an outside shot that he could be 100% by then? There is. There clearly is, because that's right around the 4-week timetable of the 2 to 4 weeks. So, I guess that's the one benefit of this happening in the first week of the preseason is that it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could still make it back by week 1. But I still put it as more likely that Flacco starts the opener. And again, against Baltimore, his former team, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And then I think there's a lot to look forward to with this team.
Absolutely, no question about that. And Anthony Finkel says here, Jets win week 1. Jets shock the world. And for you, Anthony Finkel, before I get to Billy, because I do want to speak about the Giants here very quickly, and of course, Giants and Jets this Sunday afternoon. I want to give a plug, actually, for somebody close to Anthony Finkel here, and that is Anesta's Hair and Beauty, and you can see some of the plug here. And obviously, Anesta's Hair and Beauty, one of the premier places around. If you want to get your specializing in sew-ins, knotless braids, crochet braids, locks, and more. And for more information on Anesta's Hair and Beauty, you can follow Anesta's Hair and Beauty on Instagram at Anesta Hair and Beauty, Facebook at Anesta Hair and Beauty, and it's by appointment only, and she accepts Zelle and cash, so certainly get your money out and get your Zelle accounts and make sure you link up, and it is by appointment only, so definitely make sure because it has been a grand opening that everybody's been talking about, so make sure that you follow one of our favorites here on Sportswire Radio. That is for Anesta's Hair and Beauty. One more time, you can also email as well, anestahairandbeauty@gmail.com, and Anesta Hair and Beauty on Instagram and Facebook, and by appointment only. And again, Zelle and cash offers accepted. So Huge shout out to Anesta, who, by the way, Anesta Glenn, huge fan of Sportswire Radio and listens all the time to all of our coverage. So we want to make sure we support all of those who support us. So hopefully you relay that message there, Mr. Finkel. But certainly, for you, Billy McInerney, I heard some different comments here about Saquon Barclay, and I guess he's got a lot to prove here this season. Maybe someone else here on the Giants team, or a couple of different guys I can think of. But what do you make of some of Saquon Barkley's comments here that he's made going into this season as we get ready for Giants and Titans here 2 weeks from Sunday?
Yeah, he's a little more fiery than you've seen in interviews in the past. I think he's frustrated with the way the last couple of seasons have gone. Obviously missed, almost an entire season, and last year struggled with injuries. Kind of a tough situation for him to be in because, he was drafted second overall when the team probably should have gone into a rebuild. And he hasn't really been healthy. I don't mind the fiery interview. I think that, I want to see some emotion out of guys, especially guys who haven't had the seasons they've been planning on. I do think that, he gets a little more leniency with the answer to that than like Odell Beckham would have, or someone else who had a more combative relationship with the media from the start.
Plaxico Burress. I mean, there's a long list. Jeremy Shockey for Giants, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think Saquon's, who's normally very engaging with the media and answer a lot of questions. I think he gets a little bit of a pass on that, but he seems motivated. He seems healthy. I mean, he's lighting up in practice. But the question is, is he back, or is the Giants defense just a sieve? So we won't find out till they play the Titans. And this is, obviously it's contract year for Barkley, so plenty of motivation to show up and try to get a second contract. Somewhere, Giants or another team. Certainly big season for him. Financially going forward.
And it's a big season for the Giants as well because, listen, you want to see what you can get out of him, and you want to be able to see, hopefully, some returns. And I want to give a shout-out, obviously, to my very good friend from the friendly confines of Turkey Country, that is South Beach here in Staten Island, the eastern shore of Staten Island. That is Mr. Joseph Bostrom, Joey Bostrom here, who looks like, are you on the shores of South Beach? It looks like where you're standing on that photo, because he literally lives, I think, like 4 blocks away from South Beach itself over there. So maybe that's where he took that photo on Facebook. But want to give a very good shout out to Mr. Joseph Bostrom and Bradley Weiss, the brute force, and certainly a lot to get into. And I'll come back to the Giants, but I find it fascinating because I heard some of the guys speak about the Jets. I heard Anthony Finkel's comments. Your good friend, Anthony Finkel, I know you sat with at the Barclays Center for the Liberty playoff game against the Sky. And certainly, when you're coming through with an injury and you're coming back from something, and, you've been through this at SJC. I've covered your career. I saw how you came back from an injury. Do you approach it with the cautious viewpoint when it comes to Zach Wilson? Do you want him back in there in week 1? Or are you kind of like what Chris said, give him a couple weeks just to be safe? You've been through this as a player, dealing with an injury, and a significant injury, because you were coming off a really, really big year. We thought the last year of your career, you were going to be one of the upper-tier players in the Skyline Conference. So in the shoes of a Zach Wilson, in the shoes of a Jets management, how do you go about this here?
Yeah, definitely as an experienced player, not with many injuries, but recent injuries, I would take the route of being caution, with a lot of caution. When I was a player at St. Joe's and I had an injury, we rushed it back because they wanted me to get back on the court, and that did not turn out to be the best decision. I still deal with some of the pain that I had with my injury senior year. So for me, for Zach Wilson's ultimate success, he needs to take his time. Now, there's a few reasons for that. One, obviously, he's young. He's the franchise quarterback. He's the guy that we're looking forward to seeing on the field. And he's the guy that we, quite frankly, want on the field because he's our best quarterback.
Anthony Finkel's still saying Joe Flacco, though, so you're sure you stick with that. You want to see Zach Wilson, just to make sure.
I do want to see Zach Wilson, Anthony Finkel. He's the guy that you're trusting. He's the guy that when all of us, Chris, Justin, Billy, we all predicted the Jets to win like 8 or 9 games this year. We felt confident because of Zach Wilson. We didn't feel confident because Joe Flacco was going to play for us.
He's won a Super Bowl, to be fair, to play devil's advocate.
Yeah,
he's won a Super Bowl.
When did he win a Super Bowl? It was
when Obama was president.
I was in elementary school when he won. All right, please. All right, so Joe Flacco, like Chris said, all right, he will be fine for the first couple of games. I would even go as far as saying I would feel comfortable with Joe Flacco for the first 4 games of the season against the NFC North, because those are the 4
Yep,
teams.
we spoke about that last week.
I mean, the Ravens, listen, all right, the Ravens are going to be a tough matchup week 1. I do see Justin's point, though, of him wanting to get back on his team, but I still feel the Ravens are going to beat us. Then you got the Cleveland Browns without Deshaun Watson. I think I still feel good with Joe Flacco that we can get the job done against the Browns. Then you got the Cincinnati Bengals, and we didn't predict that as a win, even with Zach Wilson. So that's fine. And then we got Tom Bryce's, 10-win Pittsburgh Steelers, according to
the schedule says it. Schedule says it.
And I still feel that the Jets can beat the Steelers with Joe Flacco. So I think the result will be the same with Joe Flacco 2-2. And if you could have Zach Wilson back healthy by that point at 100%, I think the Jets win that battle if they finish 2-2.
And before I get to a few other things, I did also want to get your perspective on Saquon Barclay, because I do find it interesting, obviously, because you've been through injuries as well, and you've also been on that position that he's been in, where you have to almost like you're a prove me player, and you've been through that at times at SJC because you had a roller coaster career as a player. At times, you were one of the more prolific players. Other times, it was a struggle to get minutes. I mean, what's your expectations on a Saquon Barclay for the Giants this year?
I'm sorry. Actually, I saw a news article that distracted me. Can you repeat that? Actually,
I was talking to the brute force. Actually, I asked the brute force that question. So that's okay. No problem. It happens. There's brain farts out there. So the brute force. I mean, obviously, again, you've been through injuries. You've been through it. We just talked about the Zach Wilson point of view. But when it comes to a Barkley, I mean, what's your expectations from him coming back from his injuries?
I think that, people are going to have high expectations for him. And quite frankly, I think you guys might want to think about his own expectations for himself. And I think that's going to be very high. And that's something that I think Saquon Barkley has to be a little bit careful about. Obviously, he's had a major injury now. And listen, major injuries definitely affect players. But it's interesting because obviously Saquon Barkley is this, Goliath man who has, arguably the biggest legs you've ever seen from a running back. His quads are huge. You guys always say quads. I mean, he's a big guy. He's strong. And I think he's going to have success. But are we supposed to expect miracles from him when it comes to his performance on the field? I don't think so. I think for Saquon Barkley, the first and most important thing is going to be, can I get through a full season healthy? That's number one. And I think the first couple of games, whether his performance is great or not, I think him just feeling healthy will help his confidence. Now, with all that being said, from a Giants standpoint, and obviously for his money, right, he has to go out there and prove he can still run the ball. And, listen, we've all talked about this religiously on the show. Have we blamed Saquon Barkley for his inefficiencies at times? No, because their offensive line has been horrendous. So they haven't really given him a chance. With the Giants' current offensive line, I'm a little more confident, but I'm not exactly that much more confident. So that is why Saquon Barkley, yes, his expectations for himself are going to be high. Yes, Giants fans want to see it. But ultimately, are we supposed to expect him to have a big season? No, I think having a good season will earn him some money in the future. But it's not going to affect the Giants' record. They're still going to struggle. And Saquon.
I still thought their schedule wasn't horrible, though. I mean, to be fair, and I think I was speaking about this with one of our listeners, and I said that NFC East still isn't the best division in the NFL. I mean, I think they still could win 6 or 7 games, the Giants. I mean, Billy's kind of in agreement with me. I don't think that the Giants' schedule is also that bad either. I mean, they could have some success. It all comes down to the quarterback, I think.
Right, and that's the ultimate thing here. But I do still, like I said, I think if you could get Saquon Barkley to have a solid season, and what I mean by solid is, listen, people are saying, let's get Saquon Barkley a few 130 to 150-yard rushing games. That's going to be a little unrealistic. But if this guy can be, a 70 to 100, yards a game, that would be very.
Well, that gives you 1,000 yards. I'll tell you what, you read my mind, because the first 2 years in the league, right, Saquon Barkley rushes for over 1,000 yards, and he's one of the premier all-purpose backs in the league. And if he gets to even close to that number of 1,000 yards, I mean, I think, listen, looking at that division, they could win 6 or 7 games here. And let me get to a couple of different comments from Anthony Finkel and Joseph Bostrom. And Joseph Bostrom says yes, meaning the Staten Island turkey question here. And he also gives Brute an exclamation points. And Anthony makes a great point. Non-contact injuries are scary, no question about it. He comes back to the Jets here and says, Flacco, no more than first few weeks. Zach is the franchise. Is it the Zach Chise or the Zach Cheese? I don't know how you pronounce it.
The franchise.
Well, listen, Anthony Finkel. Well, Anthony Finkel was going on at the end of the show last week talking about Mark Sanchez here and going on about Mark Sanchez winning. I think it's the most playoff games in Jets history. We're talking about Jet quarterbacks, but let's hear nor there. Obviously, we'll get into some of that here. Also, Mets score update before I come back to the NFL. And Mets now, it looks like here, thanks to the crack staff for giving this update here, we have 6-6. So the Mets, again, find a ways to tie a game that they desperately need. And for those that are watching those Atlanta Braves, the Atlanta Braves are up 2-1 over the Cardinals. Cardinals are playing great baseball right now, but the Braves they don't lose. I mean, so we'll see what happens there. And also, interesting point on Flacco. Flacco, 98 and 78 careers as a starting quarterback. So he still had a very, very good record there. But coming back to the NFL, some other stories. I want to come back and talk about some other things. Before we go into Bears, because I see a lot of people are tuned in right now and people are getting ready for football. I mean, for you, Chris, is there any other stories across the league that you're watching here? I know with you and Sharman that are going to cover, obviously, for us here on the show tomorrow that will air with the Liftoff Jets. Any other stories around the league that you're watching before week 1?
I think just how the AFC West is going to work out. I mean, you got 4 really good teams in that division. All 4 teams, you could make an argument, are Super Bowl contenders this year.
I think all 4, right? Over-unders 10 wins, I think. Did I read that right for the Vegas bet line? 10 wins, right?
Yeah, you might be right. I haven't looked at the over and unders yet, so you might be right on that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I mean, even in our division, obviously with the Jets, we're kind of, it could go either way. But Buffalo is going to win the division. I don't think there's any, disagreement there. But after that, I think the division is up for grabs for second place. Miami's kind of the wild card. What is Tua going to be this year? Right? Just like with us, with Zach. Zach is going to make us, win 7-8 games or make us win 4 or 5 games. That's where we're at right now with this team. Miami could be just as good, even better, with that roster. That roster's got a lot of talent. Like us, we have a lot of talent too, but big question mark at quarterback. Unproven quarterback. And I think Miami with Tua, even though he won about 7-8 games last year, 9 games.
I think it was 7. I think is a couple of games.
He's a little bit. I don't know if he's underrated or underappreciated, but. The guy wins games. He may not look pretty sometimes, but he gets it done. So it'll be interesting with the additions that they made with Tyreek Hill coming over. I mean, that offense should be good. I mean, now you got a whole new offense, with McDaniel coming in as the head coach. So the West Coast system is there as well. So we'll see. But the AFC is loaded, I think, with a lot of good teams. NFC is a little more wide open. You got a handful of really good teams, and then the rest could be, kind of in the middle. So
yeah, I agree with that. I agree with all that.
So I think the AFC is the conference to really keep your eye on because there's so many good teams. You got 5, 6, 7 teams that you could make an argument that are Super Bowl contenders easily.
Absolutely, no question about that. And actually, Crack Staff is giving me the over win totals. We're getting ready for week 1, and every team in the AFC West is 10.5. I've got Kansas City 10.5. I've got the Chargers 10. Because I read that in the New York Post, and I was like, that I had to talk about that. I saw Chargers.
And someone's going to not make the playoffs out of that 4, right? At least 1, maybe 2 teams don't make the.
Yeah, I mean,
playoffs.
all of them are at 10.5 for over 1.
That's crazy. Someone's going under. There's no way they're all winning 10, right?
I have Vegas at 8.5.
Yeah, I have Vegas 8.5.
I got here VegasInsider.com 22-23 NFL win totals betting odds, and I have here Denver 10.5. I have Kansas City 10.5. Los Angeles Chargers 10.5. Los Angeles Rams. I'm sorry, Las Vegas. Oh, you're right. Actually, you're right. That's typo. Las Vegas Raiders 8.5. So we have 3, 10, and then 1 at 8.5. So I stand corrected.
To me, I would have that flipped with Denver. I think Vegas is better than Denver. I think Denver's the one team that could potentially flop in that division, honestly. I think with the addition of Devontae Adams, the reconnection with Derek Carr, I think Vegas is going to be really good. Chris and I were actually having this conversation on Twitter. I think it was yesterday about the Chargers and their chances this year. I don't know how that this is not their year. I mean, they look locked and loaded, and Justin Herbert looks poised to have a monster year, and they're going to be an absolute force in the AFC. And I think there's going to be one time where they're going to actually not Charger, and they're going to actually get the job done. So I really like LA this year. Another team that I like is Indianapolis. I think the Colts.
Okay.
I think the Colts are going to be really good this year, and for them, they're going to be in a pretty easy division. Look, the Jaguars are going to be improved. Texas is probably going to be the worst team. You could debate Atlanta as well, but you got two teams that you're much better than. Tennessee, I don't really trust, and I think they're going to take a step back this year. So I think the AFC South is really in Indy's to lose, and I think with Matt Ryan, I think he's still got enough left in the tank that they could make some noise in the AFC. They really can.
He's a veteran quarterback that might have his last run in him left. He's got maybe something to prove.
Could Matt Ryan be this year's Matthew Stafford? You could argue he's put up better numbers with Atlanta than Stafford did in Detroit. He won them and he took them to the Super Bowl a few years ago. So, you could argue Matt Ryan could be this year's Matt Stafford.
Well, we'll certainly find out here. And, of course, Mr. Brute Force, your father, the Super Force here, Joel Weiss says Mets blow the lead, but Canada to the rescue. But I think I heard in the background that the Rockies are maybe threatening the Mets a little bit right now on the top of the ninth, right? With one out here, that's the last.
The second batter hit a comebacker to Diaz. It hit Diaz in the foot and it deflected into short right field. And the guy got the second base.
Oh, well, we'll certainly keep our fingers crossed here because the Mets, I kind of feel like need to win this game. But we'll get to that in a little while. And, I mean, for you, Billy, any stories that you find interesting in the NFL? Looking at some of these win totals here, over-unders, we're getting ready for week one. I look at the Giants, and the Giants are at 7.5, which kind of matches what I think. I think they're going to win 7 games, and the Jets are 5.5. But any over-unders on what teams that maybe you find that's interesting or fascinating to you?
For one, I think 5.5 on the Jets is low. I think they'll win, 6, 7, 8 games, maybe even push for 9 if Wilson takes strides. So I think that's a low win total. I think 6.5 wins for the Jaguars is still a little bit too high.
I agree 1,000%. I looked at that and said 6.5. That was high.
I don't like that one. Another big story I kind of want to watch is, something that's kind of on my mind is, what are the Packers going to do this year? How quickly, Aaron Rodgers is a guy who takes a long time to build chemistry with his wide receivers, and he has a real young receivers room. That 10.5 win total, if they go off to a slow start, that 10.5 might be a little bit tough to hit. They still have Aaron Rodgers. I think they'll be okay, but there's that little bit of doubt. He doesn't, Devontae Adams has been towards the top of the league in target share for the last, 4 or 5 years. Aaron Rodgers loved throwing the ball to him, and he's not there anymore. I don't know who's going to absorb all those targets. So that's the way I'm going to be watching intently the first few weeks is who kind of separates as Aaron Rodgers' top target because he's not someone who's going to force the ball to a highly drafted receiver. He's going to go to whoever thinks going to make the catch. So that, I think, is a real intriguing story around the league. Other than that, another story we talked about in the AFC West. What does Russell Wilson do with the Broncos this year?
That's a good one.
He's kind of had a couple of years for the Seahawks, and you have to wonder if that magic is kind of, gone a little bit. He doesn't have the same scrambling ability he used to. That the Broncos might be a little disappointed what they're getting in Russ. Especially in that, division that's just going to be murderer's row all year as the Mets just get out of the inning.
Oh, thank God for that, because I'm worried about the team already. Sorry, Mr. Brute Force.
Yeah, I think those are two big stories.
Can you put your sign up, the confidence sign up? You need the confidence going here.
Atlanta Braves keep winning.
Just a little reminder.
Keep winning. All I'm going to say, I'll get to that. I was in Duffy's yesterday, and the Met game came up, and Steve Saperstein asked me about it. And I'm like, yeah, the Mets, for whatever reason, it's coming down. But I'll get to that. The last weekend of the series, second to last week, whatever it is, it's coming down to the Mets and Braves. But that's here nor there. But, the brute force, Billy makes some great points. And I almost want to make this analogy here when it comes to the NFL, because I heard Matt Ryan and I heard Russell Wilson. And I thought about it here for a second as I'm getting excited now for the NFL season. I'm thinking about watching these games on Sunday and having a burger or two while I'm watching the Sunday night game, obviously at Duffy's, I'm sure. And do you think in some way or another that Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan might be in kind of the same position? Kind of fair to say. I mean, last couple years, teams really haven't performed well. Maybe Falcons performed a little better than the Seahawks just because of the schedule, division, and they kind of hung in there, and we spoke about them, obviously, at length last year, the brute force, your frustrations and disappointments. They hung in the postseason race as long as they did. But do you find any similarities maybe to a Russell Wilson and a Matt Ryan right now at the moment?
I mean, I could see where you could put some similarities on them, but, I mean, there's obviously a little bit more pressure on Matt Ryan than Russell Wilson. And, and listen, Russell Wilson's going into a new team with Denver, which, there's going to be pressure because they're a team that's won. They've been a good franchise over the last couple of years. Obviously, the Peyton Manning years were very successful. So I think Denver, there's pressure, but Matt Ryan hasn't won anything, and Russell Wilson already has. So, Matt Ryan, there's a lot of pressure there. I know it's Indianapolis, but Indianapolis, Justin was talking about, has a roster that can win. I mean, they have a great defense.
They should have made the playoffs last year. They clunked the last game of the season in Jacksonville. I mean, you couldn't have played as worse as a game as they did that last game of the season.
I'm convinced that game is the reason Carson Wentz isn't there anymore.
That's a great point. That's an excellent point.
I'm going to get to him in a second. Don't worry. I got Commander Carson on my list of people I want to talk about. All right? But listen to me. All right. I do think that the Colts are going to be good this year, like Justin said. I do see them winning this division over Tennessee. I think they took a little bit of a step down with their roster. They still will be a good team. They'll still be in the playoff hunt. But I do think that the Colts are the team to beat in that division with Matt Ryan. And I do think that he'll make them a playoff team and a successful playoff team. But as we've talked about religiously, there are a ton of good AFC teams. So it's going to be tough for them to win in the playoffs. It's not going to be a cakewalk like it is in the NFC. But to get to the NFC for a second real quick, because I was looking at the betting odds just like you guys. All right, I want to talk about a few that I just saw, starting with Commander Carson. All right, 7.5 wins for Commander. Are you serious? All right, I know.
I like that number, actually.
Please.
You like it, okay.
Let's talk well about the Commanders, please. No, I'm not doing that. Are you kidding me? 7.5 wins? They ain't sniffing 7. All right, they'll be more near 4 or 5. All right, the Commanders are not that good. I know, they're getting back young on the defensive side. I know they have some pieces on offense, but we all know what Commander Carson does. He's not going to make the team better. I think they might be better off with Taylor Heineke. I think that Heineke's actually looked good in the preseason. I never should have thought they deviated from him. But I will say that. Now, to stay in that division, you guys know I got to talk about this, and we're going to be talking about this plenty this season. How about them Cowboys? All right, they got them nice and high at a 10.5 wins this season. Sure, they might get close to that. I still don't see them winning the division. We'll get to that in a few weeks. All right, but they're not winning the division, so they're going to struggle to get that 10.5. And you know what they do? They might still get it, but they're going to come crashing down when the playoffs come around. So I think that you need to take that into consideration when you come to the betting odds here. And, of course, I cannot go off this show, and I got to wake up John Gonzalez because I know he's watching, but he's got to wake up. All right? And with the Detroit Lions, all right, 6.5. Perfect.
I was waiting for that.
Perfect. I think that's right where it needs to be. 6 to 7. It's going to be one of those two numbers for the Detroit Lions. I think they have it perfect. But another team in that division, and I'm wearing the purple today, and Rob, my Uncle Rob is a Viking.
Oh, Rob Cheyenne, of course, love Uncle Rob, by the way. Uncle Rob has the musical and photo chops, obviously, to family.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take a photo off his Minnesota Vikings page because are you kidding me? They have them way too high for the Vikings. The Vikings are barely going to scratch off, the same amount of wins as the Lions. So I think that the Vikings, I'm just looking here. If you guys
9.5.
9.5.
That's way too high.
Well, they
I
won. What did they win? 8 last year and what 9 the year before? I mean, that's kind of where they've
close.
averaged, right?
still think that's high. They have a new coach. Kirk Cousins is still there. Their schedule's not that easy. So I don't see personally this going very well. And I do think that them and the Lions are going to have a very similar record.
No shot.
Yeah, I mean, I could maybe see that. I mean, I think Minnesota. I could certainly see why Vegas notched them. Although to be fair,
To me, I think Minnesota's one of the, to me, Minnesota could be one of the surprise teams in the NFC. Because remember, there's not that many NFC spots, that are really all that locked
Locks.
in. You could say Green Bay's a lock, Tampa Bay's a lock, the LA Rams are a lock. You want to give me the Cardinals? Okay, I don't really buy the Cardinals. You want to give me the Niners? I don't really trust Trey Lance.
Right.
I don't trust anybody in the NFC East. I think the biggest number to hammer the under is the Dallas Cowboys. That 10.5 is way too high.
The Vikings have a weak schedule too. You look at it,
It's pretty favorable, and I think this new system, it's going to be a Sean McVay light kind of system, kind of what they ran in LA. I think it's going to be a good system that benefits Kirk Cousins. You look at what it did for. You look at what the system did for Matthew Stafford last year in LA, and look,
Not with Trubisky as their quarterback.
I told you I'd wake him up.
But to go back, Minnesota's got really good playmakers. They have Justin Jefferson, they have Dalvin Cook. They're still very talented on the offensive side of the ball, and that defense is going to get better. The defense will get better this year. I think Minnesota is going to be one of the sleeper teams to do a little more damage than we think in the NFC.
Well, somebody's got to get a wild card spot, right? So you got all these different teams kind of bunched up: Minnesota, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Dallas, right? You want to throw in maybe one other team. I mean, they're all kind of bunched up, 3 or 4 different teams for that last or second wild card spot. Maybe somebody on the NFC East only wins the division. Then you got a couple of other spots, and we are joined by John Gonzalez from the Sports Authorities Group, and you can certainly follow them on Facebook at the Sports Authorities. Make sure you do subscribe. I know Chris is a moderator there, and also I am as well. And Chris says here, and John says too, I think some of the guys here, stop it, you blatant fools. The steel curtain will rise again in the AFC. And welcome to the new greatest show on turf, the Motown Beast, the Lions. I'm with John Gonzalez because I do still think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be in the mix. I think they're going to be in the mix.
Here's how I feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, jump on.
They're going to have a good defense, and they're going to keep themselves in games. I still don't trust them from an offensive standpoint. They're going to be a 500 team again because they're going to have the defense that can win you some games, but they don't really have the quarterback that could take you over the top. Unless we learn something about Kenny Pickett that we might not know yet, I really don't see where this team can go. Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, I don't see that combination doing any kind of damage. Even though Mitch was okay at best in Chicago. But if Pittsburgh is any good this year, it's because Kenny Pickett is really good. And I firmly believe Kenny Pickett's going to be a really good quarterback. Do I think he could step into that role right away and be this good?
No.
I don't think so. I think
maybe by the end of the year.
He's going to need a development. No, I think he'll play this year, Chris. I think he will play.
Yeah, I said, but by the end of the year, I think he'll be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, but I think it will take us a year or so to learn kind of who he is. It's good. It's good in the sense that Mike Tomlin has watched Kenny Pickett day in and day out because the Pittsburgh Panthers facility is right where the Steelers train as well. So they see each other they see Pittsburgh practice all the time. So look, I think it's going to work out. I think they made the right draft pick, but I think they're going to be average at best because they do have a very solid defense.
Well, I mean, you look at that division, right? And Baltimore's listed at 10.5. Cincinnati's listed at 9.5.
Which I think is a disgrace. Which I think is an absolute disgrace.
And how about Cleveland?
There's no way the Cincinnati Bengals should be underneath the Baltimore Ravens.
And Cleveland 8.5. Doesn't that seem a little high for them, considering they're going to have their own problems also in the quarterback position?
I don't know if that number has changed since if that was the final number after the Watson 11-game suspension. Because I don't know that this team wins more than 6 this year.
I was gonna say, if you told me 6.5, I would have left
Only
with that.
being eligible to play in 6 games this year. The season might be already lost by then. So I don't think that I just don't think that there's a possibility for the Browns to win more than 8.5 games. So I think the Bengals got to be the favorite in that division. I think Baltimore's going to be pretty good. And to Brad's point before about seeing Joe Flacco play the entire AFC North, I actually think that Joe Flacco would be a better matchup for the Steelers defense than Zach Wilson because he kind of understands what the Steelers throw at you. He's seen the Steelers defense year in and year out. And, for a young quarterback, that's not easy. And I believe they went through a defensive coordinator change, but still, it's the same system. It's still the same thing Mike Tomlin likes to run. And, it's always been a very formidable defense. So Pittsburgh's going to be okay. I would say that. I don't think they're going to be good, but I don't think they're going to be bad.
No. They're not going to be okay. Let me make this very clear. All right, I made this clear a few weeks ago. All right, I already made this prediction. I said on this show, and I'll say it again. The Detroit Lions are going to have a better record than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I said it, and I'm going to say it confidently again. All right, because it's not the Pittsburgh Steelers. We went through their schedule a few weeks ago, and none of us came out very confident except for one person, Tom Bryce, who somehow put together 10 wins for this team.
But we went through the schedule, though. But we went through the schedule and said, okay, well, look at who they're playing. And they come away with 9 wins. And what did they win? 10 last year and made the postseason. Yeah. And Mike Tomlin, once again, he's coached, 17 years, 16 years in the NFL. And he's never had a losing season. He's always been 8 wins or better.
I remember the moment me and Chris said it together. There's always time for a first. All right, and this will be the first because this team is not ready, and certainly they will not succeed in that division. Nonetheless, in the AFC against a lot of the other teams.
We'll find out. I definitely do think that the Lions will be improved. Go ahead, Chris, jump in.
I was going to say it's going to come down to. I think Justin brought it up. It's going to come back. It's going to come down to Trubisky. What is he going to do this year? Right? He's been in the playoffs with Chicago. Not that
he's got a couple of playoff appearances. He's not a terrible quarterback.
Yeah, not that he looks good doing it, but he's gotten there. So if they can minimize his
12-4 season too.
If they can minimize his turnovers and kind of keep to the running game, and the defense is going to keep them in every game, right? They're not going to get blown out. They're not going to be down 20 points in the second half because that defense is going to keep them in every game. So I think it's going to come down to Trubisky. What is he going to give you? I think that's the biggest question with him. He can, if he just limits his turnovers, I think they got a chance to win 9
games. Let me
games.
get to John Gonzalez because he's got something he wants to share because he's into it, and I see a lot of people tuned in. He says, here's the story. Jimmy G won't get his $24 million. He'll be released. We'll sign with Seattle. I heard that somewhere on the radio. What do you guys all think about that, what John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities?
I totally agree. He's going to get cut, and I think San Fran has done him super dirty because they should have moved him earlier in the offseason.
Mm-hmm. Now, we spoke about this after the NFC Championship game. Yep.
Yeah, this guy's a winner. He may not be a.
He's got 4 playoff victories under his belt, the Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game in the last 3 years under his belt. Not
the guy wins games. That's what it comes down to. Isn't he elite quarterback? No, but the guy wins games. Simple as that. If you put him on Pittsburgh, we're talking about a different.
Hey, he beat Aaron Rodgers for what it's worth in Green Bay. He's got some big wins. He went to Dallas.
Exactly. I'll be honest. If I'm Pittsburgh, I would try to sign him because I think he would give him their shot this year because they have a good enough team. They just don't have.
And that's what. Listen, you know what, Mr. Brute Force, you did hear confirmation. By some hook and cranny, like Ric Flair used to do it in the ring. Ric Flair obviously just wrestled his quote-unquote last match. If the Pittsburgh Steelers could get a Jimmy G, all of a sudden that AFC North, they're right there. I still think they're right even there. And we get nothing because I saw Billy and Justin also do it with Mr. Weiss, Mets win. Yes, Mets got a win. Speaking of wins by hook and cranny, the New York Mets get a much-needed win over the Colorado Rockies. Yep, go ahead, jump in.
I'll say this too. San Francisco, I think, made a mistake by cutting Jimmy G this year. I think they should have started Jimmy G this year because they still have a chance to get to the Super Bowl if he's on the team. Without him, Like Justin said earlier, I don't trust Trey Lance either. He has not looked good in the preseason. I don't think he's ready. I would have kept Jimmy G one more year and rolled with him and tried to get to the Super Bowl.
And I like a guy whose career record, thanks to the crack staff who's given us this, I like a guy whose career record is 33-14 in the regular season, and a guy who's I like that to me. 33-14 in the regular season, and in the postseason, I think he's 4-2. So that shows you know what, this guy can win. He's a winner. Kirk Cousins, we speak about all the time. He's got the gaudy stats, but his record, meh, not so much. I mean,
500. Probably, right?
Even a Matt Ryan we speak about. I mean, look, his record, it's to be desired, but he's 33-14. And John Gonzalez says, Brute, don't we got the dream matchup, Detroit versus Pittsburgh? Can't wait for it here on Sportswire Radio. Looking forward to that here.
Perfect example, Kirk Cousins, 59-2 in his
That's
career.
That's my point. You just made my point. And I listen, he's got good stats. He's had a good career statistically.
He's a good fantasy quarterback.
Exactly. 59-2. But Jimmy G, I look at it 33-14. And I look at the numbers, still 67.7 completion percentage, 71 career touchdowns, and 38 picks. Is it not 5,000 yards a year like Drew Brees or Tom Brady? No. He's competent. And he's 4-2 in the postseason. 4-2 in the postseason. Rob Maraska says, I have no voice, but what a walk-off win for the Mets. Yes, Mets, we'll definitely get to the Mets for sure in a little while. For sure, we'll get to Mets, we'll get to Yankees, and obviously we'll see Rob Maraska back on here next week. He'll have his contest, his Brett Beatty contest, although I think I did hear that Met fans right now aren't super high on Brett Beatty since he kind of had his first couple of days, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, still a lot of time here, but we are on Sportswire Radio speaking all the latest happenings here in the world of sports with some of my guys here, and obviously we get the news from Justin Gianelli about Mr. Pete Alonso here helping the Mets win another big game, but we are with the brute force Brad Weiss, the legendary SJC New York Golden Eagle, Billy McInerney, formerly of Elite Sports, and Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, and from the Liftoff Jets and Talking Rivals, Chris Pizzea. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, and if you like what you hear from us on Facebook, you can follow us anytime at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. And also, John Gonzalez would like to say that Lance is a hot mess, just like Love with the Pack. But the difference is that Aaron Rodgers still has the job for now. That's the one difference, right. I would say. The one difference. And it looks like the 49ers are going in another direction here, and certainly we'll see what happens when it comes to all that. But I guess we will segue a little bit into baseball, obviously. Mets get a big win. Yankees, I think, are back on track right now. They're playing the Oakland A's as we speak, and Yankees now have got 4 consecutive wins. And, Chris, I'm glad to get you on because I'm glad to talk some Yankees. We didn't do too much Yankees because I was dominated by Met guys. And Rob Maraska is the Met guy, and we had the brute force, and we had Ernest Dove, and Ernest Dove is like Mr. Met minor league guru guy, and love Ernest, but, it's all Mets talk. But, about 4 or 5 days ago – yeah, guys.
Before we move on to the Yankees right now,
sure.
There was an incident in Monday night's Mets-Yankees game that needs to be addressed by our resident Yankees fan, Chris Pizzea. What on earth are you Yankees fans doing using a damn hot dog as a straw for your beer?
Does not.
What is going on at Yankee Stadium, Chris Pizzea?
He does not speak for the rest of us. I don't know. That guy does not speak for the rest of us. He's an outliner. I have no idea. I seen that video too. I was like, what in the world is this dude doing? I don't know, man. But you know what? He went viral, right? So good for him. He went viral. I don't know if he's making anything off of it, but that is pretty nasty stuff what he was doing. So
yeah. Well, maybe that's what Rob Maraska was doing because that's why he's out of commission. Because John Gonzalez certainly says, okay, Rob, choose some cough drops and read your Keith Hernandez book, which I'm sure Rob Maraska is probably reading that Keith Hernandez book now, but obviously we wish him well for sure. But that's a good segue from Billy and the hot dog, and that was a good point to bring that up. But enough about the hot dogs for now because certainly I want to keep my appetite for after we get off the air and hopefully have something good to eat. But Yankees, like I said, about 5 days ago, it was almost like the sky was falling with this team. We were even worried if they're going to make the postseason. I heard from people on the street the manager was in trouble. But for now, it looks like Yankees have weathered the storm, but the lead is still only 7.5 games. But I think this team has played at least a little bit better. They win the last game of the series against the Blue Jays, sweep the Mets, get a big win in Oakland. You would think they would certainly get back on track with a couple of more wins against the Oakland A's, against a very, very bad ball club right now. It's pretty much traded away everybody. And how do you feel about this Yankees team right now, Chris?
I feel all right. Stanton came back last night. He's playing tonight. Getting him back is big. We're not going to have Cortez for at least a couple of weeks. Hopefully it's just, kind of a break. They're saying it was a groin injury, but hopefully it's just to give him a couple of, starts off to skip his start. But I feel pretty good. Holmes is going to be back in a few days. He was pitching today. He said he feels fine. So listen, it's all about October, right? I mean, that's what we've been talking about. So it's going to come down to that. I know the Montgomery trade doesn't look good now because Montgomery's pitching unbelievable for St. Louis, and the guy we got, Bader, still has not played for the Yankees. So
we're going to want him, I think, by the end of the season at this point. That's what I heard on the radio last week.
Sometime in September. So hopefully he gets back before October start, the postseason starts, so we can get some games in and, get into some game time there. But and Bader's not in a boot anymore, so that's a good sign. Okay. So hopefully he's going to start some kind of rehab going on in another week. So, but I feel much better now than I did last week. They're actually hitting now.
Oh my God! What was it? 3-14 at one point or something like that. 3 out of 350.
Yeah, 3 out of 15 runs. And I still say I've been saying it on the podcast for the last few weeks is that the backbone is the backbone. The backbone for this team is the bullpen, right? When the bullpen is a mess, the team is a mess. I mean, you can say that about any team, but especially with the Yankees because that's their strength is their bullpen. And once Holmes started blowing games, excuse me, and they didn't really have a set closer, it seemed like the whole team was in disarray. So now it seems like they're kind of getting settled in now. Loizaga, it looks a little bit better now. Chapman is still a mess, so I'm not really, waiting for him to straighten out. But
no, I think we're waiting for him to leave the New York Yankees uniform on the field at the end of the season.
Yeah, he's definitely done after this year. So, I listen. It's all going to come down to October, what they do, and of course, Houston, what they're going to do against Houston, and hopefully we get a chance to meet them in the ALCS, and and we'll see what we do with them. I mean, right now, if you ask me to bet money, I don't feel that confident that we'll beat them. So, but you never know. In the playoffs, things could change very quickly. So, but I like we see with the Yankees, right? For about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a month, you could say they were not playing well. They were looking really bad, like they were going to choke this lead for the division. But now they look much better. So, it helps. Playing against Oakland, that'll right the ship pretty quickly. Like you said, they're a AAA team. If you look at this team, maybe 2 players on the team.
I was going to say at this point.
Yeah, it's that.
They reminded me of like the 1998 Florida Marlins, where it was like you were trying to pick, like, okay, who do I know that was still on the team, or who wasn't on the team?
Is this guy?
Just who are all of them? And I've got a bunch of comments. Let me get to them here. First, let me get to Joey Bostrom before I come back to John Gonzalez. And Joey makes some good points as always. The Yankees needed the wins over the Mets, and they have to take advantage of this week's schedule coming up against Oakland and the Angels. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. The Yankees need to feast on these wins because September, certainly you don't want to go into this with the 4.5 or a 5-game lead. Then it's like, oh boy, here we go again. And John Gonzalez first says, Chris, you look clean shaven. Now lend your razor to the Brute. The Brute Force does have a certainly big look, but I think the Brute Force should keep the Oh, well, compared to the Brute Force you are. Compared to the Brute Force you are. I think that's what
he looks all right. He looks
I think he should keep the look.
Yeah, he looks neat. It's not like he looks like a mess. He looks good.
Not like me, who looks like a real mess. That's a real mess. That's
okay. John Gonzalez this week for November when it's no shave November.
All right, fair point. And he says, who is the one that you thought that the Montgomery trade was a bad trade? I'm waiting. And he's trying to refer to himself when he thought about the Montgomery for Bader trade.
It looks bad now. We still got to see Bader play. If Bader makes an impact in the playoffs, right, which that's the whole plan. And we also need a center fielder for the team going forward because we don't have a center fielder. So listen, the timing of that trade, let's say it this way, was bad. Okay. That's a trade they could have made in the offseason. Kept Montgomery for the last 2 months here and into the playoffs. Even if he doesn't pitch, at least have an extra arm there in case you need it. But So I think the timing of the trade itself was bad, but I think the trade when you just look at it, Montgomery for Bader, I think it's a good trade because we need a center fielder, right? I just don't like giving up Montgomery when you gave up, 3 or 4 of your other AAA starters that you had in case someone does get hurt. And that happened with Cortez. Now, it just magnifies it a little more. I mean, we got Jason Schmidt up, Clark Schmidt, excuse me. He's up. So hopefully, in a couple of weeks, Cortez comes back and everything is cool.
Jason Schmidt, a blast from the past. That's a name I haven't heard a long time mentioned out of anybody's mouth. Of course, the former starting pitcher there for the Pirates and the Braves, amongst other teams. Right?
With the team, and he's not wearing a boot.
Okay. So. Yep. And that's what I think he wanted to.
I got you. No, listen, it doesn't look good now. I agree. It doesn't look good.
Well, I mean, we'll see. Listen, and I think we've all said this here before we cut to some of the other guys here. The Yankees aren't going to be judged by their regular season record, whether they're 100-plus wins or 90-plus wins, or even if they just make a wild card. They're going to be judged by whether they go and win a World Series or at least get to a World. Yeah, that's it. So to me, at this point, that's all that matters here. And I want to come back to the brute force Brad Weiss, and we'll get to some of the other guys. I mean, Yankees here obviously get back on track, get a couple wins over us here with the Mets. Look good yesterday in Oakland. Game just started here a little while ago. We'll get a score in a few minutes. But Yankees do look back on track. Judge is heating up. Stanton comes back in the lineup. And, I mean, what's your thoughts to brute force now on the Yankees since we last spoke?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to talk about with the Yankees is about the main man, Aaron Boone, all right? Because that post-game press conference where he slammed the table, all right, was actually something as a coach I liked because finally he showed some passion, right? Some passion, I'm not happy about what's going on. I mean, Aaron Boone has been ridiculed for kind of just not being that guy, being kind of nonchalant, laid back, not really assertive when the Yankees are struggling. But he showed a little bit of passion. I think it actually helped the team with their confidence, especially in the games against the Mets, even though I think the Mets series is more about the Mets than the Yankees because the Mets struggled mightily. And the Yankees actually came out with big wins. But, similarly to what we're going to talk about with the Mets a little bit later, just like John Gonzalez said, the Yankees have to take advantage of the weak opponents right now. And for them, it's all about showing good baseball habits, right? Playing the game the right way, right? Working at bats, being more consistent with getting on base. Like the Yankees need to show more of that rather than, wins and losses. Yeah, obviously they need to win some more games, but they also need to play better baseball. And that's what they were struggling with. And as much as we kill Aaron Boone, he was right. I mean, the Yankees, right? They weren't exactly just playing their best baseball. They weren't exactly right. Firing on all cylinders. They just had to find a way to play better. They had the team in place. They needed to play better. And simply they have a little bit, and now they need to continue that trend against these weak opponents so that they could go out and beat the better teams again. And, the one thing that was tough about their, losing streak and their losing series streak, my apologies, was that they were losing to the Blue Jays and the Rays and teams that, are trying to come back and get them. But ultimately, like we said, the Yankees, they built that big lead. That's helped them obviously big time because they could afford to struggle a little bit. But now I think it's, they're solidifying it a little bit. They need to finish the season off strong. But I think the big thing with the Yankees is going to be consistency throughout the lineup. Can they get production from lower in the lineup? Can their pitching staff show a little bit more? Can their bullpen be more consistent? Because right now that's been a little bit turbulent. So it's going to be about consistency. And then I really think it's going to be about leadership too. And I think Aaron Boone showing leadership, right, showing that, all right, we're struggling. I'm going to slam the table, do whatever it takes, right, and make sure we know that we got to pick it up. So I think that was big on Boone's part. I think the Yankees are just fine at this moment. We were pressing the panic button last week, but I think we're okay right now.
And I think that's an important point that you made because you do need leadership. And you know that being a player, being a coach, you've been in important spots. You've been in the postseason. You've been a college basketball player that played in the postseason. You understand when a manager needs to take the bull by the horns in the charge. And I think that we'll see if they did that. Before I get to Billy McInerney, let me get to a few comments. Obviously, our dear friend, the Mad New Yorker, Mr. Carlos Arturo Chavez is back with us here. Yankees did what I said last Friday. Play small ball, get pitching, defense, and slowly moving away from the slump. Yeah, you know what? got to give him credit there. Yankees have definitely done that. Pitching solidified the last couple days, and they got some timely hitting, and they were able to do different things. And Yankees need to stay away from basically what he's saying. Yankees need to stay away from the Joey Gallo types. That's basically what he's trying to say here, pretty much. But and I mean, for you, Billy, aside from the hot dog mention here, I mean, Yankees we speak about, and they get back on track. We'll definitely get to the Mets here for sure in a little while. But they have rid the momentum here of 4 wins in a row, and are they back on track? You think?
Yeah, I think they're back on track. You know, they stumbled coming out of the deadline. I never thought the second half was going to be as good as the first half. The schedule was, more difficult than it was, but they're a good team. They are a clear playoff team. We said at the start of the year they're going to sleepwalk to 95 wins in the AL East title. There's just no one in this division that can really challenge them. I still don't think they're as good as the Astros. Coming up in a playoff matchup, but at this point, the American League's really a 2-team race between the Yankees and the Astros. So, I wouldn't worry about them. I wasn't worried about them when they were in that skid. They still have, a big lead in the division. They're the last few weeks, they can, they have an easy week coming up. They'll be fine. They're going to clearly be a playoff team, probably win the division by over 5 games, And then, they run to the Astros, and that's when I think their season comes to an end again. But, I don't think that I think the level of concern was always very overblown given, the lead this team had built up and the fact that, they weren't fully healthy and that, they were in a slump. It happens, but so no, I wouldn't say I was ever worried about it. I wouldn't say that, I was ever concerned they weren't going to win the division. I saw people saying they're not going to make the playoffs sitting with an 8.5 game lead in the division.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I heard somebody in the street, I think it was Sunday morning, stop me and said, okay, they need to fire the manager because I'm worried that they're going to lose the AL East. So I did hear those comments.
I agree with that. I don't think he's a particularly good manager. Slamming the table aside, I don't think I think they could do better than Aaron Boone as their manager. I think that's probably, assuming Judge leaves this offseason, I think there's going to be a major downtick in their play next year. So I think after next year is when you see that happen. But, I think I don't disagree that Aaron Boone is not helping the Yankees. But, again, this is a good team. They're going to sleepwalk 95 wins, and they're going to get the ALCS.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think all they got to do is play, 500 the rest of the way to get 95 wins, and that'll probably get them to still comfortably, like Billy said, win the division by between 4 to 5 games. So that's pretty much spot on before I get to Justin. And John Gonzalez says the Hawaiian team in the Little League World Series could crush the Oakland A's. Yeah, listen, probably the SJC New York baseball team at this point, brute force. I think they could probably beat the A's at this point.
I will say to John's point, though, that team from Hawaii is pretty damn good. I mean,
they are good. No, they definitely are good. They are definitely good. So I do want to give them credit.
Still the Long Island team, right?
I wasn't going to bring that up. I wasn't going to bring that up.
All right.
Yeah, everything.
So, they said the Boston, what was it? Game 1 of the NBA Finals, famously they called the Boston Massacre between the Lakers and the Celtics. Well, when the Long Island Massapequa team played and lost the way they did, that was the Long Island Massacre. So unfortunately, that was the case. But before I get to Justin, Carlos says Yankees got great pitching to beat the Mets and other teams this week. I definitely agree with you on that. He says Nestor being out is kind of not bad, but this is the time they can organize the roster for the play. I think he meant it's kind of bad, but the point is they are going to have to organize that roster. Yeah.
As long as he comes back fine, that's all I'm worried about.
What do we have now? 5 weeks till the end of the regular season? I think at this point now about 5 weeks. About 5+ weeks. So we'll certainly see. I mean, Justin, haven't got a chance to speak with you in a while about the Yankees. And what do you make of their week? And are they back on track as they play right now scoreless with Oakland?
Yeah, I was trying to find the game. I guess it's Prime Video night, so turning that on.
Boy, that's such an annoying thing still. This whole year is going to be
as I wear my Amazon shirt. However,
no comment.
No, but I mean, look, they did what they had to do. They beat the Mets, both games. And look, the Mets didn't do what they needed to do. The Mets stranded a lot of runners, but the Yankees came up with the timely hits. And of course, Aaron Judge, providing the big home runs, just kind of how he does it. Now you get Giancarlo Stanton back as you get to the West Coast, and that, lengthens out the lineup again, and, has somebody behind Judge that, can really, provide the power, because, the lineup was lacking and they weren't scoring a lot of runs over the last little while, and now it seems like their offense is righted. This Nestor Cortez situation, you hope that's minor and that maybe that they're kind of doing this to kind of combat his innings, because we all knew that the innings limit was going to creep up on us with the fact that he's never pitched, I think, more than like 85 innings in a full season before. So I think all of this is, all this is part of the plan, and they're getting themselves ready for the postseason. And they've been fortunate to not have a team in the American League East catch fire. I mean, we talk about it all the time with the Mets and the Braves, how the Braves just don't lose, and they're up 5-1 again tonight. I mean, the Braves are just an absolute machine.
It's going to be both those teams are going to win 100+ games. Book it. Mets and Braves are going to win 100+ games.
I was going to save this for later when we talked about the Mets, but it could be Dodgers Giants Part 2.
I got a feeling. I tell you what, I got a feeling about that, man.
But going back to the Yankees, they haven't had that. And you look at it, a perfect example like tonight. You think that the Blue Jays have a soft landing spot with the Angels on their schedule at home. Well, but guess what? They got steamrolled. The last I checked, the Angels were up 12-0.
Unbelievable.
And which, by the way, I have to say, it is very nice to see Mike Trout being able to get back out there. He's already hit a couple of home runs since he's come back. He's just absolutely one of the great players of this generation. And all you just hope is that he can manage that back issue and he stays on the field, because it's just such a treat watching Mike Trout play on a night in and night out basis. But the Angels just come in to Toronto and just wipe the floor with the Jays. And the Jays have never really been able to get on a consistent track where they rack off 7-8 wins in a row to cut into the Yankee lead. So all this Yankee struggles right after, from the All-Star start of the second half until, just recently, it never really hurt them. And, on the flip side, where the Mets never played this poorly, yet can't keep a lead to save their lives. Because it's baseball. It's hard to win every single night. You're going to lose a couple games. And it's unfortunate that every time the Mets lose, the Braves are winning again.
Well, I've got a few other comments in here, and I'm behind on them, so let me get to all those. And Carlos says, the A's have a great minor system, and look for two guys to get moved up and look for them to compete. Not necessarily win, but it's going to be interesting to see these guys move up. And John Gonzalez also says, will the Orioles make the playoffs? That's the story in the American League. We'll definitely get to that in a second.
I think they do.
And Carlos also says, A's minor league was selling out their games while the major league team struggled for 10,000 plus, let alone, I think at this point, like 5,000 plus. And Carlos also says that Blue Jays manager is done after the season. And John Gonzalez says, hey, Chris, Jorge Mateo has been looking pretty good in Baltimore. Yankees may have given up on him. Yeah. Mateo, you have a thought on that?
Well, he was in the trade for Sonny Gray to Oakland.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, and he didn't do anything good there. And I think they released him or they traded him to Baltimore. So they obviously didn't have patience with him either. But he's actually playing well. But he's not going to be the shortstop for too long anyway, because they got Henderson coming up soon in Baltimore. So that guy's probably going to be the starter next year. So I don't know what they're going to do with Mateo after this year.
And speaking of the Baltimore Orioles here, which I think John Gonzalez made a great point on, they're up here 2-0 on the Houston Astros. And I feel like I want to get to Albert Pujols, but I want to get to the Baltimore Orioles again because John Gonzalez mentioned it, and I heard Justin nod. I mean, it might be the story here at Major League Baseball. I get the Mets, I get everybody else, the Braves, and these other teams, the Dodgers, of course, and even the Guardians with their nice little story. But Baltimore might be able to make the postseason. They're kind of right there. I mean, what do you think, Justin? Does Baltimore find a way to be able to kind of sneak in this race? Because they've definitely played well enough that they're here to stay, I think.
Yeah, I think they do. I do think they get that final wild card spot. And I think, you know what? It's great for the city of Baltimore because, you know what? When the Orioles are good, Baltimore's an incredible baseball city.
It's a good baseball town. Always was a good baseball town.
I know that could be a cliche for any baseball town when their team is good, but Baltimore especially. I mean, their fans are very passionate and they are Very excited about their Orioles teams when they're good. And you know what? They've been given a reason to smile this year, and they've, surpassed the win total of the last 4 years. And, they're finally on. You finally see the track that they're on. And I don't even think it's a question. Brandon Hyde's the runaway manager of the year. I mean, how could he not be? It's just it's unbelievable what the Orioles have done to get to this point. And really, things feel accelerated. Like maybe next year was supposed to be their year where they got really in the thick of contention, but they've accelerated things. And even after trading Trey Mancini, they're still in the thick of things this year. So I don't know how you can't be excited about the Baltimore Orioles. And yeah, I think they are going to get in.
Well, they're 2.5 behind Seattle right now, but the way they've played, I mean, considering where they were and what people thought, I think a lot of people are definitely rooting for them. And if you definitely notice that they're starting to draw some fans there as well. And that's always a good baseball city when their team wins. I remember certainly as a kid when the Orioles won the AL East back in 1997. Baltimore definitely drew very, very well. And before I get to Billy as well as some of the other guys, let me get to Carlos. Mets have played a terrible game versus the Phillies and Braves. They have to move past that and come out stronger on these guys when the Braves play again. Yep, absolutely. That's going to come down to, listen, it's going to come down to the last weekend of the series or the last
You know what? But you know what? The Mets are done with the Braves. I mean, not the Braves. They're done with the Phillies. They went 14-5 against the Phillies this year.
Even the Braves. The Mets have played well against the Braves this year. What have they gone, 9-6?
The Mets are currently 9-7, and the Mets just have to win one of the final 3 games, which is the last weekend of the season. Mm-hmm. They have to win one of the final 3 games to make the Braves have to pass them in the standings, because then a tie would go to the Mets. Remember, there's no game 163 anymore. You have the tiebreaker, and head-to-head is your number 1 tiebreaker. So the 10th win is the magic number, and the Mets need to win 1 as opposed to the Braves having to sweep that series. So, and the Mets went 4, and then against Philly, the Mets went 14-5, including taking 3 out of 4 this weekend. I know things didn't look all that great, but the Mets had some pitching issues this weekend. Remember, Trevor Williams started one of the games of the doubleheader. You had David Peterson start another. Taijuan Walker's back was not quite right yet, and that's why they pushed him to Tuesday, and they moved DeGrom to Thursday. And you had Jose Butto make his major league debut. He looked like he had no idea what he's doing.
So, Ernest Tubbs, Jose Butto. We had him on. We talked about Jose Butto, and what did Jose Butto do?
And the Mets were a mess from a pitching standpoint, and they came away with 3 out of 4. And they did what they had to do to bounce back after losing 3 out of 4 to Atlanta. That was not a great series. I'll admit that, even though I didn't see much of it being away. I didn't really watch a lot of the games. I kept up with it, but and then you come back again. You had that you pitched okay, but you really just didn't hit against the Yankees. So it's right. It's nice to see the way they've bounced back these last 2 nights.
Absolutely here, and a few other comments before I get to some of the other guys here. And Carlos says, Mets fans rejoice. Free Minute Maid ice on McDonald's app tomorrow. They won with 5+ runs. So I think he's referring to Thursday's game. And I guess we'll see.
Well, no,
today's game.
The final was 5-4, no?
Yeah. So, wait, tomorrow.
No. Tonight was 7. Actually, no. Tonight was 7-6. So they get free. They get the free tomorrow as well.
Okay, all right. So certainly, if you're on the Minute Maid Ice free Minute Maid from the McDonald's app, you got yourself something good. And Joey Bostrom says Baltimore is definitely the feel-good story of the year for sure. And John Gonzalez says the Mets have played well against the teams in the division. Yes, obviously Nationals, Phillies, Marlins, which the Mets usually don't. The Mets usually struggle against some of these teams. So that's a great point. And Carlos says 34 games to go. Let's see what happens with this pitching staff. Butto needs to get moved, but Butto only has 2 pitches and doesn't have control. Adios, Vamanos. Billy, Baltimore Orioles.
And from what I've heard, it looks like Carlos Carrasco is on track to rejoin the rotation next weekend. So
Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, so you're looking at bumping Peterson back to Syracuse as well. And then you're back to rolling Scherzer, Bassett, DeGrom, Walker, Carrasco. And that 5 has really provided some really good performances. Carlos Carrasco has been good for this team, and I'd argue that I'd want him as my number 4 in a series.
Right now you'd obviously said it: Scherzer,
DeGrom,
DeGrom, Bassett, and then you'd have Carrasco. Yep,
so,
I would agree with that.
The Mets starting pitching is in good shape. You're going to expect some struggles when you're down to your 9th, 10th string starting pitcher. Not everybody has 10 quality major league starting pitchers. It's impressive enough for the Mets to have 5 quality major league starting pitchers. Usually once you get to 5, 6, 7, 8, it's thin. And David Peterson, I know now you could probably take Tyler McGill out of it because he's probably going to work out of the bullpen as he's coming back from his injury. But once you get down to that nitty gritty, the very end, you're going to be hurting.
Absolutely, no question about that. Here, and Carlos adds, before I do get to Billy McInerney, Bassett pitched 1 inning too long tonight. Buck needs to be careful. He pushed Walker, and that's dangerous. Yeah, it's kind of almost goes off the second half of last season.
I disagree with that. I was actually cool with him going out for the 8th inning. He had that trouble in the 6th inning. That's when the Rockies got their runs. And then he really bounced back with that 6-pitch 7th inning, and he's sitting there with 85 pitches. And Chris Bass has been the one Met who you've been able to push every single start, to give you as many innings as possible. And he has been the innings eater, the horse of this staff this year, because I think only 3 or 4 times this year out of his 25 starts where he's failed to reach 6 innings. And I had no issue with 85 pitches going into the 8th inning. Absolutely. I thought that was the right call. Now, obviously, Michael Givens has got to get those outs, and he hasn't. And that's a Billy Epler issue by not getting enough relievers at the trade deadline. So I really have no gripe with Buck Showalter and how he handled the pitching tonight. That's on execution for Michael Givens.
Fair enough here. And Billy McInerney, the Baltimore Orioles, and it does seem like they're a great story, and it seems like week after week we speak about them. And what do you think? Do they find a way and squeeze into a last wild card spot? It would be certainly quite the miracle story here. We were speaking on Sportswire Radio the last couple of days with these different wrestlers who've had big comeback stories and are kind of chasing the Holy Grail for their world championships. And in some ways, the Baltimore Orioles are kind of like those underdog wrestlers I've got a chance to speak with, where, maybe they just might sneak in here and make the postseason. Do you think they find a way to sneak in?
Yeah, I do. I don't think they pass the Mariners. I think they actually pass the Blue Jays. I think the Mariners are going to.
I think Carlos made that point. That's a good point.
And that's the American League. You have 3 teams that I think are great stories. The Mariners obviously haven't been in the playoffs in 20 years. The Orioles have been in a horrible rebuild. And how about the Guardians, going against type, re-signing?
I can't figure the Guardians out. I don't know how they're ahead by 4 games now. The White Sox were supposed to be winning this by 15-plus games. The Twins made some moves.
Managing their team, so,
oh, my God.
It's, the Guardians, and I'm happy for them. They re-signed Jose Ramirez, and everyone thought they were going to trade him away. Yep. They're doing what you should. I know they traded Lindor away, but re-signing Jose Ramirez, you keep your homegrown talent, you build around them. I'm glad to see they're being rewarded for that with a sizable lead in their division. And
4 games now.
Yeah,
impressive.
Minnesota has been brutal, but I do think the Orioles make the playoffs. I think you see Toronto, Seattle, and Baltimore as the 3 wild card teams. I think Tampa, Seattle, and Baltimore as 3 wildcard teams. I think Toronto ends up being the odd team out there. Actually, and while we're, going through comments, I'm going to do something. If you bring up not his last comment, but the one before that from John Gonzalez,
sure.
I'm going to do something very, very rare that I don't think has ever been seen on the Sports Report before. I am going to agree. I'm going to agree with the John Gonzalez comment.
Wow. Okay. So you tell me why, and which comment should I bring up here? Because I got a lot of comments.
About Budo.
Budo will be fine.
John Gonzalez.
Okay.
He only has 2 pitches right now. But look, this kid, he made 2 appearances above Double-A before his start. He wasn't ready. He's not ready to be in the MLB yet. He's a young prospect. He's the 16th ranked prospect. He never should have been in that position. But with Walker and Carrasco both being hurt and the doubleheader day before, it was they needed somebody who was stretched out enough to start and, who was lined up the third day. And so Budo was the guy. In a normal year, Jose Budo is not making his debut. He's not in that situation. So, no, I would not trade Jose Budo. I'm not going to give him Jose Budo. I think he has a future. I don't know that he's ever going to be in the rotation here with the prospects we have. I'm still high on Matt Allen, but I'm not going to trade him based on one star. And I'll give Budo credit. He battled more than I expected after that first inning. He came back and he ate some innings. And, for a guy who clearly is not ready for the major leagues yet, he gave the Mets, he ate enough innings for the Mets to help them get that win. So I'm not ready to give him one. Yeah, I'm not ready to say he's not going to be anything. I'm not sure he's not going to be Jacob deGrom, obviously, but his curveball was better than I expected it to be. Actually, his curveball was his best pitch during his start. So I think there's something. I wouldn't say I'm listening to you, John Gonzalez. I'd say on this one issue I'm not listening
which, by the way, brings up that you bring up that game where Budo started. How about Nate Fisher?
Yeah,
3 scoreless innings. So
that was a big performance.
So
we needed that.
That really kept the Mets in the game, and their offense got going, and they were able to come back and win that game. You ended up getting 7 innings out of Jose Budo because he ended up going 4, and 3 innings from Nate Fisher. They covered 7 innings of the ball game, with those 2 pitchers, and then it ended up working out where they go ahead in the top of the 9th. Diaz a little shaky, but he shuts it down, and the Mets get the victory. So, I mean, it really just goes to show that everybody has had to step up at some point. Even though Jose Budo's numbers were terrible, and I agree with Billy too. They really like his arm. They really like what he could bring to this organization. He just was pushed a little further ahead of schedule because of need. They needed a starter, and it was just. It almost looked like it almost looked like a horror show. You see Carrasco coming out of the game in the second inning. You see Walker coming out of the game the next day in the second inning. It's like, wait, what the hell's going on here? And for Budo to step into that role despite his struggles, you got to give the kid a lot of credit. You really do.
All right, some fair points here. And Carlos comes in here and says there's less space in the minors. Move on, get more talent. This ain't the 80s minors. Carlos also points out here Seattle can beat Cleveland and or the Twins if they get the wild card. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Cleveland, though, seems like they've got the clear momentum right now. I mean, certainly it looks like. But anything can change in that division. Certainly teams there and can change. But
just real quick, going back to Baltimore.
Sure.
Baltimore plays Toronto the last 3 games of the season. So that might be for the wild card.
Could be.
If they keep it this close.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting. And
is
Seattle.
That Baltimore or Toronto, by the way?
Let me double check. It is I think it's in Baltimore, but let me double check.
Well, I'll tell you what. There'll be a big crowd there in Baltimore. They'll come out.
Oh, definitely. And I think Seattle, I was looking at Seattle's last 5 series, they got the easiest schedule. They have it's at home at Baltimore.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Baltimore is the kind of city. If it's a nice weekend,
yards that weekend.
Yep. If it's a nice weekend and they're in it, they'll come out.
Midweek because they had to push the season back because of the lockout.
Okay,
so it'll be like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay, well they'll still come out for sure. There's no question that Baltimore.
I believe that Tampa's going to be the one that falls out of it. I think
69 and 55 right now.
I think Toronto survives this situation. I think Tampa's the one that falls out of it.
Tampa though is getting healthy though. That's the other thing.
They got the pitching. They definitely got the pitching.
Yeah.
If they get Baz back, that's a dangerous team.
Tampa's getting healthy. That's a team I'd be worried about and they. You could look at their roster, and they just win.
They always do it every year. The last 15 years, they always.
And they're actually getting healthy now, so I'm a little concerned about them. Not concerned,
but I think they're starting to peak right now at the right time. I mean, for you, Bruce Forrest, very quickly before we move on, you buy the Baltimore Orioles? I feel like we speak about them every weekend. Do you buy them making the postseason, or you think they're going to come up a little short?
Well, I definitely am excited to see a team like Baltimore be one of the top stories in the majors. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Everybody else seems to be.
So you're not being confident on us. There's no confidence here on the screen that comes up.
No, you know what? I do have confidence that Baltimore will stay in the race. But quite frankly, I just don't think they can get over the three teams that are in it right now.
Yeah, they're good teams. There's no question they're good ball clubs.
I think Tampa Bay, to the guy's point, they've won 6 straight games. They're getting healthy. They're a team that religiously does it, especially does it late in the season where they make a push into the playoffs. I'm with Chris on being a little bit worried about them. If you're a Yankee fan or an Astros fan, they are clicking at the right time, and they always have the pitching. So I would be a little bit worried about Tampa Bay. Toronto, I think they'll get the job done. They have too much talent on that roster to not make the playoffs. And then we've talked about it on this show. Seattle, 2001. Yep. It's time. It's time for them to finally make the damn playoffs. So I do think this is the year. I do think Seattle, to the guy's point, has a weak schedule going forward, and I do think they'll find a way to get in there. So I would put those 3 teams in, and again, I do think Baltimore stays in the race. I'm disappointed to say it, but somebody's got to be the bad guy, and unfortunately, it seems to always be me. So I'll be the bad guy and say Baltimore does not make the playoffs. It will be close, but they don't, and the 3 teams that are in it currently will.
Yeah, they're good ball clubs. At the end of the day, somebody's going to probably win 88, 89 games here and wind up making at least the first 2 spots. In that last spot, you figure doing the math, it's going to still be 87 or so wins. And it's going to be a tough call here. And Orioles are up 2-0 in the bottom of the 9th here right now. Cubs, Brewers tied at 2. And certainly the Brewers have fallen back a little bit for sure. A game that means nothing. Texas over Detroit 7-4. Rays, though, lose to the Red Sox today 9-8. Toronto gets shut out by the Angels 12-0. Phillies win again 7-4. Phillies have played well. They're getting Harper back to brute force. They're getting him back. I know
he's back tonight. That means here we go.
I know
he's back. He's back.
But they won. They found a way to win, though. We'll see, though. Reds get a meaningless win over the Nationals 7-3. Death taxes. Dodgers win against the Marlins. Obviously, here Twins look like they're going to get a big win here tonight against the Giants, who've kind of fallen back to earth. White Sox again lose 7-2. Cubs and Brewers we just mentioned. Padres 11, Royals 5. Braves again can't find a way to lose. They're up 5-1 over the Cardinals. Yankees up 3-0 now over the A's. So Yankees get back on track. And Guardians Mariners, interesting matchup there. 1-0 top of the 4th.
And by the way, to add to that 3-0 Yankees score, Aaron Judge hit his 49th home run of the year.
Well, definitely, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm definitely going to get to him in a few minutes. Speaking about home run chases, I'm going to get to him and somebody else.
And let's take a minute to freaking appreciate the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're 87-37. They're an absolute machine. It's unbelievable. We talked about the Yankees early on in the season. Can they chase down the wins record? Hell, maybe the Dodgers could do it. Because they're now 42-9 over their last 50.
What do they got to go 29-9 the rest of the way to tie 116-46?
Is that really that? Is that really that impossible at this point? With the way that this team is playing, it's just unbelievable. And this is with Walker Buehler missing a significant portion, and then we hear the news that he's going out for Tommy John surgery. So see you 2024. Yep. Clayton Kershaw's missed a bunch of time.
Yep.
Looks like they might get him back next week. We'll see if he pitches against the Mets, but. Guys like Tony Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson, really stepping up to the plate. Julio Urias pitching very well. The Dodgers find way after way to just not fall off at all. It's unbelievable, and I think it's just clear that they're the best organization in baseball right now. From their coaching staff to their developmental staff to the scouting department, the front office, everything is in line so well that you could have these major injuries and lose absolutely nothing. It's something you have to marvel at. It really is.
No question about that here. And let me get to a bunch of different comments in here. And I'm going to line them up here, go shotgun. And John Gonzalez says, will the Dark Knight be available for the Orioles in the play?
Has he even pitched on the big league team this year?
I guess we'll find out. Interesting. We have 5.5 weeks till the regular season ends. We have about 5.5 weeks.
He's going to pitch batting practice, maybe. That's about it.
Seattle just gave Julio Rodriguez a nice little bump on that contract. I heard
fun.
some of the guys mention that in our Twitter discussion, and Anthony Finkel says Brute Force, the ultimate bad guy. Yeah, you know what, the Brute Force, if you wanted a career in wrestling, you definitely do have the look of a bad guy. I could definitely get a phone call or two for you out there. So you have the size, you have the look right now. So if you want a
There you go.
career maybe as a bad guy and maybe an enforcer, I can certainly work on that. John Gonzalez says no doubt. Also, Carlos says too bad Harper can't pitch in relief. Anthony Finkel says death, taxes, and the Dodgers win again. Nice one to me. Thank you so much. Justin is a sports encyclopedia. I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly. Joey Bostrom says Dodgers have confidence, going off the brute force. And Carlos says, I have a theory that the Dodgers will lose 3 more players and fall 5 games short of the record. So that would give them 111 and 51. Okay, but just a theory, but not likely. Okay, those are some interesting points. But speaking of home run chases, and I want to get to this, and we'll come back to Judge and get a few more thoughts on the Mets. I think for everybody that's like a Joey Bostrom and Anthony Finkel, they'll enjoy this. It's Albert Pujols right now. You know, I had asked at the beginning of the season if Albert Pujols would get to 700 career home runs. And I think that the general consensus was, and to be fair, he wouldn't get it. And right now, though, I would say he still has an outside shot to get it. It's not likely, but he's had some second half here since the home run derby being in the All-Star game. And I'm looking up right now when it comes to overall best players in the second half here, and Albert Pujols is right up there. Obviously, his teammate Paul Goldschmidt is probably at that top of the discussion, but I mean, for you guys here, and I'll go with the brute force Brad Weiss first. I mean, Albert Pujols and 700 home runs, and it's quite a magical number, and very few men have gotten there. It's only a handful and less than a handful, and I mean, do you think he finds a way here and scratches out a few more home runs and gets to 700 home runs and calls it quits? I mean, what do you think there, the brute force, Brad Weiss?
You know, I just was the bearer of bad news, but why not give some good news? You know, why not go the other way, you know, for this one? Yeah, I actually do think he gets it done. And listen, he's been hot lately, hitting home runs left and right. In fact, you know, he just had, I believe, 2 against Bumgarner in Arizona, which is no slouch.
Last Saturday,
Home runs against. So, I mean, I do think that some way, somehow, you just feel the story brewing right now that it's going to happen. I think he does it. And in fact, you know, surprisingly, I will say this, it might happen in the playoffs. It might actually happen in the playoffs, you know. It might not happen at the regular season. So
no,
interesting. It wouldn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
So I will say it's going to be interesting. He's going to make it close, and I'm just going to say it right now.
Is that a brain fart, the brute force? Were you giving us a brain fart there? Saying,
yeah, I think so.
He'll hit his 700 home run in the postseason.
Well, again, I will say that I think he's going to get 700. But you know, he might get to the. But what I'm saying is, I do think he could do it. I do think he could do it. All right.
Yeah, I think he could too. He could too.
I think. Hey, 7 more, right?
6. Only need 6.
You know, in the regular season, as you know. So, listen, it's going to be interesting, though, and I think that the story itself, the way he's been hitting lately, I don't see a reason why we should be down.
His batting average right now, the last time I think his batting average was this high really was when Obama was president. I mean, really. I mean, I'm serious. The last 7 or 8 years, all I ever saw his back of his baseball card was 240, 250, and I look up and he's hitting 276 right now going into action today. I mean, he's really on.
Here's something that'll help him out.
All right, talk to me.
He's got 9 games, okay? He's got 9 games against Pittsburgh left, and he's got 6 more games against the Reds. So right there, he should be able to get 6 out of those games.
Let me ask you here. Rob Manfred's going to break out his crate of juice balls he has sitting around in the warehouse.
Yeah, why not, right? And you know what? Why not, Billy? You know what? That's a great idea.
Anyway, why not? Do it.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it, man. I hope. Listen, give him a little help.
Let me ask you a question then. I'll get everybody's thoughts on it because Billy makes some interesting points, and I love the creativity there, Billy. Billy, you certainly read my mind there. But I mean, I'm assuming that he's going to get a lot more at bats here these last several weeks of the season, and obviously you saw the first half. He struggled a bit, and you didn't see him in there every day. And now you're seeing him. And does he get exposed, you think, Chris, a little bit? And then maybe kind of pitchers catch up to him? Because he is 42 with what he's doing. He's playing a lot more than he's played in a while. Do you think that maybe some of this catches up to him? Because he's on quite a run right now. And
I think it's
he's
just
really
the opposite, right?
Really?
Since the All-Star
You tell
break,
me
he's
why.
been playing great. So I
me
think it's
why.
just the opposite. I think he's playing great. The more he plays, it seems like the better he's been getting. So I say, you know what? Throw him out there as much as you can. Obviously, that they're still in a division race, right? They're not, they've pulled away a little bit. So
yeah,
they
Milwaukee's got a shot. Yeah, they've got a shot.
But they've got some, they got some pretty easy games coming up. I know they got Atlanta next, now, but then they go to Cincy, then they come home to play Chicago. They play home to play Washington. Then they go to Pittsburgh. They come home to play Milwaukee 2 games, and then Cincinnati again for 5, and then at San Diego, at LA. So that's where you could give them a break, and at Milwaukee. But then the last 6 games are against Pittsburgh. So, I mean, you could, kind of rest him in that run with San Diego and LA, but he should be able to get it. I mean, 6 more home runs against not exactly a tough schedule. He should get it,
Impressive stat is 14 home runs and 210 at bats this year. I think that to me is what stands out most.
42-year-old man.
Unbelievable. I mean, let me before I get to some of the other guys here. And Carlos says Pulos has about 6 more chances. Well, duh, he needs to get 6 more home runs. And he says 34 more chances for the record to beat A-Rod and others, meaning games. But I think he corrects himself. So thank you for 34 games or so left. Yeah, I mean, he's got a shot here. And Anthony Finkel says, where is Rob Maraska tonight? Off partying with his dog. Well, Rob Maraska doesn't have a voice because he had surgery tonight and he's not feeling well. So that's kind of the reason why he's not here. So he will be back with us next week, Anthony Finkel. So we wish him well, and that's the answer to your question. And John Gonzalez says, Pulos got some steroids from A-Rod. And Rob Maraska says he's right here. Yes, you're here, but you don't have a voice. That's kind of why you're not here with us. So it's not a big deal. It's, we're not ESPN. But, he's here listening. Yes, we got you. And Pulos is part of the group that his age is questionable. I mean, Justin, do you think Pulos gets to 700 home runs? And before I get to Joey Bostrom and some others' thoughts on it, I mean, what do you think here?
I really want to see it. I really do, and I think it's seriously attainable. Do I think he ends up doing it? I think he does fall short, unfortunately. However, I will say. He is at 693 currently, so we need 7.
I thought it was 7, yeah.
Yeah, it's 693.
Okay.
Unless he hit one tonight that I missed it, but they only have 1 run, so I can't imagine that it was his home run tonight. But what I do think is he's going to hit 4, and he is definitely going to pass Alex Rodriguez. But I do think he could end up at like 698, 690. I
got a question for that in a few minutes. That's an interesting point that you bring up. 697, 698. I got a question for that.
And I have your answer. The answer is no.
Okay, well, I'm going to get to it. Don't worry. Don't you worry. No, not so fast there, my friend. I definitely will get to that here for sure. And Joey Bostrom says, I definitely hope he can get it with the schedule coming up. I think a lot of people, and I'm sure Rob Maraska and many others are rooting for, because you want to see it. I mean, it's a stat 700. You're talking about, Bonds and Hank Aaron that have got there. You're talking about very few guys.
We're not going to see again.
No,
for a long time.
Babe Ruth as well.
Nobody near this.
And you know what? He might be the greatest player of my lifetime because
definitely
for me, Bonds started his career before I started watching baseball. Right around the time I was born, and know, Pujols might be the greatest player I've ever seen.
Absolutely,
like his career start to finish. So
and no steroids either, right?
No,
it's interesting. If he's the greatest player that we've seen, that we've got to see a whole career. That's an interesting, very, very interesting question. John Gonzalez says Pujols is a great player, but a big time jerk off the field. I mean, what come? Well, I mean, I really listen. There's a lot of guys that you can, you ask me off the record, I can tell you. Well, I was getting to that before, of course. I was getting to that here, and not going to see Pujols much either. And Mario Klubin says, "Are you guys in Britain or Australia?" No, I'm in the United States, and I appreciate that you watch some of my stuff with Wrestling Championship Entertainment and some of the other wrestlers. So I do appreciate you watching on YouTube, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube at Sportswire Radio, where we've gained a few extra subscribers when I don't even do anything to promote YouTube. So I really appreciate that. So thank you for your support, and we are in the United States, but we do a lot of coverage in England. Billy, you kind of jumped in there. So I guess, do they throw like wiffle balls out there? Do they throw like water balloons to let him get it? I'm almost thinking like it's like wrestling where you kind of like just lay down and let the guy get it. And I'm almost thinking, do we like get the pitchers to kind of like move up and kind of like soft toss it, underhand it to Albert Pujols just so we can get it? Because I do have a feeling like Justin that maybe he'll be like 4 home runs short, 3 home runs short those last like 10 games, and maybe they'll pull some strings in here. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really see that happen so much. I do think that coming up short's a real possibility, but I think it's kind of unspoken knowledge that the MLB is, using different baseballs for different games. We've seen the Mets-Yankees games, both the City Field Yankees balls that were flying out that, other games this year are, not going anywhere.
There's been some weird baseball scores this year. Some weird games.
A few years of, screwing with the balls, and it, I would not put it past the MLB to, send some of the old juice balls that they still have lying around to those games to try to get Pujols 700. I do. I hope he gets there. Maybe this is like just, very optimistic, but I do think that he ultimately does get there. I think it's too good of a story for it not to happen, and I'm just hopeful that it's, again, like we said, no one else is in range of doing that. Trout probably doesn't have long enough playoff to get.
Yeah, I feel like Trout with the injuries, it's going to be.
No,
I don't see it.
Yeah,
so it's. Hopefully he gets there. He's a legend. I think I agree with Justin. I think Pujols may be the best player I've seen. Me and Justin are around the same age, and I was kind of born when Ken Griffey Jr. was like with the Reds and sort of the injuries. And
I saw the Mariners that like late 90s, but I don't think Griffey did it for a longer period of time than Pujols.
No, and even me, I didn't really think I was born in '97, so you wouldn't
really see it. Manny Ramirez, I think, was pretty comparable. I did get to watch Manny Ramirez's run. Yeah. I think Manny Ramirez was pretty comparable to Pujols. Obviously, Pujols had a longer career.
Anytime somebody has a chance to get to that number, and they've done it without taking steroids, I think you want them to get there. You want to see it happen, and I also think it's a great reminder because obviously Pujols with the Angels, especially the last years, it was brutal. So I think, for fans my generation, I think it's kind of a good reminder that this guy was at one point an absolute force, one of the best players to ever play the game, and kind of reminded people that, like, yes, this guy absolutely should be a first ballot Hall of Famer with no questions, So I think, so in that perspective, I'm kind of glad it's happening. Kind of, reminds people one more time of just how great he was early in his career.
I would have also thrown in there all around for a period before I get to John Gonzalez and Anthony Finkel's back and forth on Pujols that Ichiro did have a run for several years that I know the home runs and RBIs weren't there, but I did feel Ichiro because 2001, you guys bring it up. I remember that 2001 Mariners team very well that summer, and Ichiro for like the first 7 or 8 years of his career was a hell of an all-around baseball. I know the home runs and RBIs aren't there, but they go on back and forth here. John Gonzalez, I want to hear the story about Pujols, and he goes on, why is Pujols a jerk? And I'll tell you. And Carlos kind of spills the beans. People are mad that he left his wife when she battles cancer. And John Gonzalez also says, well, the same thing pretty much. He served her with divorce papers. Listen, that stuff is all unfortunate, and obviously there are things that, there's a lot of stuff that happen.
Yeah, the whole story,
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Listen, obviously, look, if you want to ask me things off the field, I'm happy to talk about it, off the air. But in terms of, look, no question that, you can certainly, all this here. And Carlos says he carried St. Louis to a ton of playoff games. I got Mario Klubin with a bunch of comments I'm not even going to bring up. So going off to Pujols very quickly, and I'll do shotgun, then I'll come back to Judge. And I do want to talk about Judge because 49 home runs, and he's coming dangly close here. And I got to ask it then. So the Brute Force, let's play along and let's say somehow Albert Pujols gets to 697, 698, 699. Does he come back next season just to hit those home runs and then call it a career, or what do you think?
No, not a chance. And listen, you know what? I said this about Tom Brady too, and we asked the question, will Tom Brady come back? I said not a chance, and then he came back. So maybe I'll be wrong, but ultimately, no, I don't see it happening.
I think your mother was mad at that comment too, by the way.
She was very mad at that comment.
And I met your mother.
If you asked her now, she'd probably be happy just because I jinxed it. But whatever.
True. Touche.
Listen, I mean, I don't think he goes out. I think it comes back. I think he goes out into the sunset with Yadier Molina at the same time, and just calls it quits. I think, A-Rod, we had this with A-Rod too, where people were talking about would he come back and, hit the home run.
Well, I don't think the Yankees wanted him to come back. That's the
Nobody wanted him. No team wanted him.
Coming back in some sort of way. I just don't think Pujols will, and I don't think the Cardinals, even though, yes, you would say they might still have interest, I really don't think they want to bring him back.
He's played really well, though. I mean, they might actually, for a guy that, if they can play him a couple times a week, he's got 14 home runs and 210 at-bats, and he's slugging .529. He's hitting .276. I mean, he theoretically, if he played well enough and he comes close enough, maybe they would take him back. He's a hometown guy. I mean, you never know.
I don't think he wants to come back. I think he's done. They're going through the retirement thing, and they're giving him stuff. If he goes to different cities, I think he's done. Him and Molina are both done, and I don't think even if he's at 699. I mean, how would that look anyway? He comes back for a month to get 2 or 3 home runs, and then he's like, "All right, now I'm done." So he ain't coming back.
It's dangly close here, and John Gonzalez, before I get to Justin and Billy on that. Do you judge Pete Rose? Do you judge Mark McGwire? Then you have to judge Pujols.
They're entirely different things, though.
And you don't know the Pujols story.
On field and off field, apparently. So they're entirely different. I don't think you can remotely compare.
It's not an apples to apples comparison.
No, it's
what Pete Rose did affected outcomes were based on outcomes on the field. What Mark McGwire did affected his play on the field.
And he also raped an underage girl too, didn't he?
Pete Rose is absolutely
Rose, I believe, yes.
Pete Rose did.
Badly timed serving of divorce papers. You can't compare it to what Pete Rose did. It's I'm not talking about I'm talking about off you. You can't compare it with what Pete Rose did.
What if think about it? What if that relationship was already, already done?
I mean, divorces don't happen overnight, right?
Yeah,
right.
It's not like she's going through chemo and he's like, okay, now I want a divorce. Obviously it was at the end already. So bad timing, of course. But what are you going to do? That's unfortunate.
So for you, Justin, I know I kind of asked you the question a few minutes ago, and you kind of spoiled it anyway. But you still think Pujols won't come back if he gets dangly close to that number?
Yeah, no, I think he's done. I think this is it. He knows it's time. This is his 22nd season in the big leagues. I mean, he's really done all he's wanted to. So I think this is it.
All right, fair enough here. And for you, Billy, does he make one more shot at it should he get close to that number?
No, I mean I threw it out there as a joke the other day, but no, he's done. You can tell he's at the point where every swing is agony for him at this point. He's you get a point where you can't do it anymore. I think he's at that point. So I hope he gets there, but no, I think he's done. I think him and Molina. I think Wainwright also retires. I think the three of them ride off into the sunset together after this season. And
Pujols, think about it. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. He's at the point where it's I've done enough. I've done everything. I don't see any reason for him to come back just to get 700. No. You know what I mean? And I think I'm a little more positive. I think he's going to get it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, he's had quite a season, and you always want to go out on a high note. And I was speaking about this with somebody a couple of days ago in sports. It's very hard to go out on a high note. Athletes all the time, and they certainly find a way. And they say, you know what, I'm going to come back here. And I got a couple different comments. Let me get to him here. And every team wanted A-Rod. Nobody wanted to pay him more than $1 million. That's the real deal. Anthony Finkel goes on about.
with A-Rod, he was already guaranteed all that money from the Yankees. So he could have came back for the league minimum and still got all that money from the Yankees.
Not a
He's
single,
getting that money.
not a single team who wanted to deal with that headache.
Yeah, nobody wanted A-Rod. He was finished too. He was done.
Well, famously, his last at bat was a single, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Right? Was it A-Rod?
Yep.
A-Rod and Jeter's final at bats were both singles. Why do I remember this? I have no idea, but it was certainly for different reasons. I mean, Jeter's was almost like kind of a famous one you see sometimes on TV. And A-Rod, I remember it was like he got that one at bat. It was like, I don't think Girardi really wanted it to play him, but they kind of played him, and he got the single.
I remember, wasn't it? Didn't they honor him or something that day?
Yep.
It was like an A-Rod day, and it
1 o'clock Sunday afternoon game, if I recall correctly.
It poured too, like right before the ceremony, and then they came out quick, did the ceremony. He had that one hit, like you said. I think it was right up the middle too.
Yep.
And then that was it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it is what it is, and John Gonzalez talks about his point is more about character issues, and that's what he kind of makes when it comes to his point off the field about Albert Pujols. And Anthony Finkel says something I can't quite show up on the screen, but he basically, to sum it up nicely, no more marriage, Pujols is saying. I'm not going to repeat the last here. And John Gonzalez also says, you know how to put things in perspective, DPH rules, meaning Anthony Finkel. Yes, DPH definitely rules. We love DPH. And shout out to DPH, by the way, property maintenance here, because we have some new buildings that we have in the collection. I think we have one, Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, in the old stomping grounds over there off the BQE on 72nd Street between 6th and 7th. And we have another one, I think, on 9th Street and Park Slope. So we got some new buildings that we're going to be maintaining, and know the building very well between 6th and 7th. I think you're right by PS 170. So I certainly good stuff there, my friend. And speaking of home run chases, and Aaron Judge goes yard again, number 49, and we got 36 games left, and he needs 12 more home runs. And Chris, I mean, I know somebody asked it to you. We're getting close to that. I mean, does Aaron Judge find a way here and get these home runs and maybe kind of tie the true record, as some would say, with Mr. Maris by Aaron Judge?
I think it's possible. I mean, he's starting to heat up again. He's actually up right now. I don't know. Last week I didn't think so, but now he's starting to heat up again. So maybe there is a chance he gets it.
I go back and forth with Judge. I'm like, some weeks I think he will, and now I kind of think he will again. Right.
Is he going to slow down? Is he going to finally, cool down at the end of this year? I don't know. He just grounded out. But yeah. So you know what? I think he could get it. I
kind of like to see.
I'm feeling positive today. I think Pujols is going to get 700, and
you got the Brute Force rubbing off.
Yeah, no, I'm his alter ego. So I'm going to say positive. Pujols is going to get 700. Judge will hit 62. How's that?
Oh, all right. That's pretty cool for sure here. And Anthony Finkel reminds me, closed 3 new buildings this week, 2 in Park Slope, 1 in Bay Ridge. We love that, of course.
Nice, man. Congratulations.
Yep, doing very well out there. Anthony's all over the place. Now he's in Southwest Brooklyn, is of course Bay Ridge, which was famously called Yellow Hook. And in fact, I just forgot to mention 72nd Street. My good friend, one of our listeners, Mr. Josh Bailey, lives right around the corner from Anthony Finkel, that new building. So you got to make sure you knock on Josh Bailey's door, and also Mr. Joseph Rosas, who's literally also up the street. And John Gonzalez says one day Citi Field will be renamed DPH Field. That very well might be the case, because they ain't renaming it Barclays Center because our Liberty lost the Brute Force. So Aaron Judge, the Brute Force, then going off on that. 49 home runs. We're getting real close. 36 games left. And if you do the math, he would actually break it. He actually is on track to break 61 home runs. Do you think Aaron Judge gets past 61?
I'm going to go back to being the bad news guy. No.
No.
I don't think so. I think that there's going to be another streak of at-bats that he does not hit a home run. I do think that, he will get close. I'll give him 58. 58 home runs.
That was what Stanton's number was a few years back, 58, right? Was it 58 or 59? There you go.
I'll give him 58 home runs, which is obviously nothing to be upset about if you're a Yankees fan.
No, definitely not.
But I do think he falls short of it, and I don't think it necessarily will be something bad. I do think that Aaron Judge still finds ways to hit for average. He'll still hit the ball well. It just won't lead to the amount of home runs that he needs. He'll still hit home runs, but not as many as he needs. So he'll still hit for average. He'll still get his singles and doubles. and be the same player. I'm not saying that because he won't hit the home runs, he's going to become cold at the plate. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he just won't get that number. He'll still hit 9 more home runs and get 58.
Fair enough here. And for you, Billy, does Judge find a way to cross that, I guess, sort of still magic number of 61?
I mean, if I think the MLB's got enough juice balls sitting around to get Judge and Pujols both. But seriously, I do think he gets there. You look at the Yankees' remaining schedule. They have, a series with they have playing the A's now. They have the Angels. They have the Twins later on for 4. They've got the Red Sox, whose pitching has been suspect. They've got the Pirates for 2 games. They've got the Rangers they close the season with. So there's enough teams with weak pitching in the Yankees schedule that I absolutely think Judge has room to hit that 61 home run mark. I'll be close. I don't think he's going to blow it away. I don't think he's going to push more than like 62, 63. But I do think that he'll end up eclipsing that mark. I think the schedule works out well for him. I think playing at Yankee Stadium helps him out. I think he gets there.
Fair enough here. And for you, Justin, we're coming close to the end of the season, and Judge another home run. And does he pass that magic number, some would still say, of 61?
I guess nobody else is going to say it, but I guess nobody else has got the balls to say it. But I could care less about 61. 61.
Okay, tell me why.
61 to me means nothing anymore. It doesn't.
Okay.
You could tell me all you want about the numbers being inflated via steroids. I understand that, and I'm not one to dispute that. That Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and Barry Bonds took steroids. The number 73. The number it is. I mean, we're not, whether you want to put an asterisk at it or not, on it or not. It's the number. They're not taking records away. The home run record is 762 and 73. Aaron Judge is not getting to 73 home runs. So in that respect, I have no care for this home run chase.
It's still
61 is still the American League record, right?
It's still the American League record. So you could say it's a semi-big deal. It's a team record, obviously, for the New York Yankees.
It's the team record and the American League record.
So, but I don't view it as a big deal. I really don't. But do I think he gets there? I think he's gonna end up at 60.
Well, we'll certainly find out. I mean, here, certainly we'll find out as we are here on Sportswire Radio, speaking all things related here to the world of professional sports, and with my guys, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, Chris Pizzea, Justin Gianelli, and Billy McInerney. And certainly we are coming down the stretch here of all things related. And come back to the New York Mets here for a second. I want to go to the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, because the Brute Force, the Atlanta Braves, obviously, I know you bring it up here. You know I'm going to ask you that question. I'm looking at this lead right now, and it's definitely dwindled a little bit. And, you're going to road me on social media. You've rode me in person. We speak on Instagram off the air, and you've rode me there. I'm sure you rode me there in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center with Anthony Finkel. But, I do look up, and these Atlanta Braves, man, to quote an Ozzy Osbourne song famously called Not Going Away, they definitely are not going away here, and they're right there, and I kind of feel like what I felt all along. This is going to go down to the last weekend, especially down there in Atlanta, and how you feeling right now about those Mets?
Confident, Tom Bryce, confident, all right? Nothing's changed, all right? Nothing's changed. I know that the lead has gone down, but nothing's changed my confidence in the New York Mets and where they're at, okay? Because you're talking about it, Tom, when it comes to we should be worried about the Braves. How about the Braves being worried about the Mets, all right? Because I think that the Mets are still, right, in a situation where they're winning the division. They have the week schedule coming up here in September. I don't think that we should be deviating from confidence right now. And listen, the Braves, this is my problem with people with the Braves, all right? I don't understand why all these other teams that the Braves are playing are scared of them. What are they scared of? Every time the Braves come in, they get nervous. Their rear ends get sweaty. It's not that big of a challenge as long as you pitch well and get on base. But ultimately, the Braves are still playing good baseball. I'm not going to hate on them.
They're playing great baseball. They're on pace for over 100 wins.
Yeah, but so are the Mets, and I think that
right. But the Mets, the Atlanta Braves are right there with the Mets.
Like I said, that is not deviating me from my confidence. That is not deviating me away from, thinking the Mets are going to win this division. All right, they still have the lead. They have the weak schedule. Okay, the Braves, yes, I know. All right, they beat the Astros in a series. Yes, I know they're probably going to win tonight and probably win the series against the Cardinals. But the Mets still have the upper hand at this moment, and I still believe they are the better team ultimately. So
yeah, I think Justin. I agree with Justin on the point that because the Mets, all they have to do is win the one game in Atlanta, they're okay. But my point, again, going back to even a month ago when you started riding me, is the fact that it is going to go down to the last weekend for the division. That's all I'm saying. I'll get the guys'
And
perspective
that's
on
okay, Tom Bryce. That's okay because, people also want to give me this nonsense. All right, I talked about this last week. They want to give me this nonsense about, how the Braves dominate. And Carlos said it earlier, how they dominated us in Atlanta. They didn't dominate nothing. All right, they dominated our worst pitchers because 2 nights in a row we had guys going out after 2 innings. We had a rain delay into 2 games. Okay, and they pounced on guys, other than Darren Ruff. Everybody else that pitched for us that normally doesn't pitch for us. Okay, then they won a game in which Fried and DeGrom pitched a good game, and they won by a run. Okay, they have not scared us. They have not worried us. Okay, yes, they're winning every game against everyone else. But don't forget about who the Mets are and what their schedule is. They're going to win a lot of games too. All right, we cannot forget that. And like Justin said earlier, with Carrasco coming back, that is huge for the Mets. I mean, Carrasco's leading the team in wins. He simply gives the team a chance to win every time he pitches. And, when we, continuously put out other guys, and even David Peterson's been good for us, in my opinion. So I'm not worried about the Mets and winning games, and I'm certainly not thinking about the Atlanta Braves, even though they're coming closer, right? The Mets, I think, have responded well to every time the Braves have made runs at them. They make another run. It's just like basketball. It's a game of runs. They make a run. Now it's our turn to make a run. I think we will, and we'll keep this lead. And like I said, as a Mets fan, this team all season has been we've been confident, Tom Bryce, and you, Tom Bryce, will not get me to go off that train.
I'm not saying to get off the train and the Mets aren't going to make the postseason. They're obviously going to make the postseason. But the fact of the matter is that the Atlanta Braves are still right there. That's all I've said from the very beginning. So they're not like running away with it. It's going to come down to what it is. But from afar here, Chris, I mean, what do you think when it comes to the Mets and Braves? I mean, to me, it seems like it's coming down to that last series they're going to have. That's just all my point has been.
It might come down to that, but I'm gonna go with the confidence thing here. I don't think it's gonna come down to that final series. I think the Mets are gonna widen it by then. I just think the Mets are the better team. For me, going into the playoffs, the only question mark I have for the Mets, and maybe you guys could answer it, is how are you getting the ball from your starter to Diaz? I don't know. I don't feel confident with those guys in the middle, and they may not even have to get that many outs, right? They may have to only get 3 outs, maybe 4 outs, 6 at the most, right? But those are going to be the most important outs that the Mets are going to have to get, right? Because you got Diaz locked up for the 9th and maybe the 8th, right? So,
well, you saw it tonight. The middle of the bullpen struggled there.
Right. That's my only question mark with the Mets. I mean, what do you guys think? Does that worry you guys at all, or are you guys confident that they'll be fine?
Jump in, Dustin. I see it, and I'll go to Billy first.
It does worry me a little bit. Then obviously the middle bullpen struggled. I still think trading away Colin Holderman was a mistake.
You okay there, Billy? I hope you're all right. Hope you're not choking like the Mets lead.
No. I work in a papper at my job, and the air is super dry, so I'm still getting used to it.
Yeah, I hear you on the air.
But the one thing the Mets do have going for them is Tyler McGill should be back in the bullpen, and one of their starters will probably move to the bullpen during the playoffs, so that'll lengthen the bullpen a little bit because those guys can come in and get those outs. So it should take some of the load off, Michael Givens and Trevor May and, Drew Smith if he's back. So, I'm worried, I'm concerned, but I'm not I don't think it's going to cost them a series yet. And the other thing is, look, DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett can all go, 7 innings, 8 innings. So, you might not need your middle relievers that much. These guys can easily get deep enough in the game, or maybe you can go right from your starter to Diaz, or right from your starter to May.
And for you, Justin, I know you wanted to jump in originally. Give me
Yeah.
your thoughts on what Chris posed.
The postseason is a whole different animal, and with the fact that there are built-in off days during the postseason, I'm more concerned about this bullpen down the stretch than I am in the postseason. In the postseason, you're going to end up shortening your bullpen anyway, even if you're carrying the full complement of 13 pitchers. You're going to be shortening the bullpen because one of Carlos Carrasco or Taijuan Walker is going to be in the bullpen. They're not going to be you're not going to be a fifth starter. They're going to be one. You're going to have 4 starters. Somebody's going to go to the bullpen. Tyler McGill is going to be in the bullpen as well, and they're going to provide big outs out of the bullpen. That if you have to go to the bullpen in the fifth or sixth inning, where that's been pretty rare because Bassett and Scherzer have given you length, and you're hoping as DeGrom gets stretched out, DeGrom will continue to do that as well, or he could get you into the 7th. And then you are able to get more outs out of Edwin Diaz because of the built-in off days. So I think the postseason, the way it's set up, really allows you to shorten the game. And I don't have as much worry in the postseason as I do during this stretch run in which, the Mets are fighting off the Braves tooth and nail right now.
And Joey Bostrom chimes in here, and Joey's got an interesting comment, and I'm going to let Joey say what he wants to say, and I'm sure the Brute Force will like it. He says, I think the Mets win the division, but the bullpen does worry me a little bit, but you got to have confidence. Just like what the Brute Force is saying. But, I do think, again, there's a fair point that the team does have some holes, and we've seen it's the middle relief. If there's one Achilles heel, I think that's been established with the team, and I think Billy kind of touched upon the point. You're hoping in the postseason that you've got a pretty good 1-2-3. Bassett has shown going to, I think it was a 2.1 ERA the last 14 starts. Yeah. You've got Scherzer and DeGrom. They're locked in, and that's what you're going to hope for. Listen, 7-game series, 5-game series, whatever game series is going to be, you're just going to go those 2 guys and then Bassett. And then if you got to throw in there Carrasco, that's what you're hoping for. But that bullpen, listen, it does worry you. That middle bullpen that the Mets have and these different guys they've collected, May, Gibbons they acquired, and Lugo certainly, and all these other players that they've brought in at times.
But you could argue every team has issues in the middle of their bullpen.
True.
Not everybody's a 5th, 6th inning guy. I mean, everybody in that middle fluff of the bullpen, they're going to be a little bit shaky. It's who you trust in the late innings. Other than Edwin Diaz, you haven't really come to trust Trevor May. Adam Ottavino's been pretty good, but you still worry about him a little bit. So I mean, there's enough ways for them to cover a 27-out game in the postseason, but it's going to be interesting to see where Buck goes with his choices and who's going to be his alternative closer if he's putting. Because I could see a scenario where Edwin Diaz enters this game in the 7th inning, and I doubt he's getting 9 outs, even though you're going to start pushing him. He might get you the 7th and 8th inning.
Well, if you're telling me that, I definitely am not going to have any confidence. The 8th inning I could swallow in a postseason series.
But you're telling me it's the 7th inning. Let's say Scherzer's at 105 pitches. You're taking him out, and the team you're facing is 3, 4, 5 coming up. You can't tell me Buck's not going to Edwin Diaz in that spot.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Brute Force? Because I see you kind of nodding your head. Anything you want to add before we move on here?
Well, obviously, it depends on, first of all, what team you're playing, who the guys in the lineup are. Because if you're going 3, 4, 5 and you got, 2 lefties in there, you might bring a David Peterson in that situation, or somebody who could possibly get left-handers out. Because, in the end, you might see those guys come back up in the 9th inning, and you do not want to be without Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning. So, listen, I do agree with all the guys, though. I would say we need to give Adam Ottavino more credit. I think he's really
he's been a name. I mean, I've definitely had my questions about him on the radio. There's been questions about him. But the last, I'd say, month and a half to 2 months, he's been pretty good. for the
He's
most
been
part.
good, so I think he deserves a lot of credit. I think McGill's going to be a big add in the bullpen as well. I think, one guy to keep your eye on, too, is going to be Drew Smith. Can he come back and potentially be the guy he was early in the season? You get that guy to be in there, too, and not be the guy. Because, before he got injured, he was pretty bad. But early in the season, he was locked down, pitching well. So if he could come back and provide something. And then I'll even joke about this one because I've heard this one potentially. And if he does come back, maybe he's the left-handed bullpen arm that we need. How about Joey Lucchesi?
Well, I'll tell you what, Carlos Arturo Chavez basically stole your thunder.
There you go. He's reading my mind. I mean, listen,
Sure.
Joey Lucchesi for, instead of Joely Rodriguez, I actually think that's an upgrade.
I would agree with you on that.
Lucchesi's got a few different pitches, and I think he could definitely get some guys out if we need it in the postseason. So,
Hey, what people forget is his last 4 or 5 starts prior to going down last year, Joey Lucchesi was starting to turn into a really good pitcher, and he was really turning the corner. And it was such bad timing to lose him last year when he was really starting to kind of find his true footing in the majors. Because he was really up and down with San Diego, not nothing all that spectacular, but you really started to see him find his footing. And I really like what Jeremy Hefner does with the starting staff. I think he's a big proponent of some of these guys' successes, and I think he helped Lucchesi along. And now, he was it tonight or it was yesterday? He recently just pitched a rehab stint in Single A. So, Lucchesi's on his way back, and that's another option for this Mets team. That makes their rotation that much. Their rotation depth that much deeper, and a potential postseason bullpen option.
And Carlos also says Lucchesi was a Golden Glove candidate early on in his career with the
He was
Padres.
good, very good defensively.
No question about that here. Certainly, those are some great things here. And before we get to closing thoughts, I wanted to give a update on the MLB standings for those that would like to know, because I got a couple of messages for that in a direct message. So let's give the people what they want here. And right now, Yankees are up 8 games over the Rays with their loss, 8.5 over Toronto. Baltimore is right there at 11 back, 2.5 behind the Blue Jays, though, for the wild card. Guardians 3.5 ahead of the Twins because the Guardians are playing right now the Mariners. White Sox 4.5 back, and you kind of feel like the White Sox might be slipping away. Astros are big over the Mariners, 12 games. National League here, we've got the Mets and Braves 2.5, although that'll be back to 2 because the Braves are
any
winning.
minute now, 1 out in the 9th.
And the Phillies are 9.5 back, but they have the second wild card. Cardinals 6.5 ahead of the Brewers, although that'll be shifted back. And I think Brewers and Cubs. I think Cubs beat the Brewers. So I think that'll be 6 games back with the Cardinals with their loss. And I'm not even going to go there with the Dodgers. They're up 20 games over the Padres, but the Padres are in that last wild card. So at least for the Padres, they're pretty much still mathematically alive and in place. And Carlos,
here's a fun fact. The Dodgers' magic number is already down to 18.
So that means I would venture to say by just after Labor Day. So sometime maybe in a week and a half from now, they'll be the
not even kidding, because the Dodgers could reel off 10 in a row. I mean, we hope not because they play the Mets next week, but and the Dodgers could realistically reel off 10 in a row again.
Yeah, I think that'll be, if you look at it realistically, what are we looking at till Labor Day? 10 days? So, yeah, I would say by Labor Day, just after Labor Day, they could be the NL West champions once again. So that shows you their just the run that they've had.
It's just not – I don't know. I feel like the Padres just really can't find their footing right now.
They're only a game and a half.
I guess they'll make that last wild card, but
they're only up a game and a half on Milwaukee for the final wild card spot.
It's sitting at 2 currently.
2, okay.
And I want to get to John Gonzalez here because he's got one more comment from us. And one more time, I want to give John Gonzalez a huge plug in the Sports Authorities group. You can follow the Sports Authorities group on Facebook at the Sports Authorities group. I know Anthony Finkel is a moderator there. Chris Pizzea is. And the Brute Force comments from time to time. I'm always posting something. So I want to thank John as always for his support and friendship. John is also, by the way, always watching a lot of my wrestling shows. So I want to thank John for the support there. I know many of the wrestlers have told me how much they enjoy the Sports Authorities group. And he says, one last football comment. Looks like the new Buffalo Bills punter has been hanging out with Ben Roethlisberger and Deshaun
We didn't
Watson.
talk about that.
And Anthony Finkel says, John Gonzalez, you're terrible. LOL. Yeah, no, John is just having fun. John's having a great time.
Hey,
And
Tom,
John-
can I address one more thing real quick?
yeah, absolutely. Floor is yours.
I got one question because I got to address it because we
All right.
talk football, we talked baseball, but I got to ask Justin Gianelli this question about basketball because I was just at the Barclay Center a few days ago, obviously watching the Liberty. But Justin Gianelli, Kevin Durant is back, my friend. I mean, you had the rant, you had that big rant. I mean, about him and being soft, and he decides to come back. I got to hear this reaction, Justin.
First of all, he's still soft. I still think he's a crybaby. 2, you'll sure as hell see me spotted at Barclays Center wearing my Kevin Durant jersey next season. Because I'm not
You
going
didn't
to.
burn it yet?
Of course not.
Dude, that jersey cost over $100. Could you really burn $100 even if you didn't like the guy? I mean, I still got my Brett Favre jersey.
Yeah, I got it from the team store, and I got it from the team store at Barclays Center, which is a very nice team store, by the way.
Yes, but yes, we were there actually a couple
Everything
weeks
about
ago.
Barclays,
Yep.
everything about Barclays Center except the lighting is like absolutely stunning. But
Yep.
yo, look, three words, run it back. Let's do it. I mean, I got nothing else to say. I mean, it turned out that after a meeting with ownership, they resolved, I guess, some of the issues. And I guess Sean Marks and Joseph's side, they gave Durant a sense of direction with this team and where they're going with the state of the current roster, which isn't a bad roster. It's still a pretty good roster. You know, you have the commitment to Kyrie Irving, who's on that last year of the deal because there was no max extension. But it's time to shut up and go win. And Kevin Durant's at the point in his career where he's not going to hold out. He's 34 years old. I don't think a guy who loves hoop as much as he does is going to just sit out and not play because they didn't trade him. But I think he came to a realization that there was not going to be a spot for him where he could do better right now than being in Brooklyn, because the places that he wanted to go obviously were some of the best teams from last year.
Right, Phoenix.
Phoenix and Miami. They didn't really have a spot for him without ruining what they have or financially being able to fit it into their salary cap. So I think he came to his realization that he isn't going anywhere. And I think when they said to building forward means that this is more than a 1-year marriage. I mean, he's under contract for the next 4 years. So there is a long-term aspect, not just, all right, let's play the season out and let's see what happens. I mean, look, that could still be the case if things go horribly wrong. But if the Nets are contending for the title next year, which any team that has Kevin Durant, say what you want about the roster, any team that has Kevin Durant can contend for the title. He's that good still.
Yeah, if he's there a full season. I mean, you got Kyrie, Ben Simmons is obviously a question mark.
He's the one who's usually always there. He might have some fluky injuries here and there, but he's never disappearing for no stupid reason. Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons, it's a whole different animal. But listen, let's roll. You know what? I hated you for about 2 months, and I'm still not exactly happy with you, Kevin. But let's roll. Let's go.
I will say one thing.
Yeah, jump into Bruce because I got a ton of comments, but jump in.
Yeah, no, I will say at the Liberty game, of course, Finkel will back me up. The whole.
Yeah, what was he saying? I want to know what he was, because I don't think I got a chance to ask him fully about that. What did he say? Because I'm going to see him Sunday, so I'll make sure.
necessarily talk about it, but Sean Marks, Joe
And question,
Tsai,
was this before or after the news?
right as the day of the news. So
Tuesday night.
Okay, so you were at the Liberty game on Tuesday
night. The news came out Tuesday morning.
Right.
And at the game, Mark, Cy, and Steve Nash were all there, and they showed them on the big board. And let's just put it this way: they did not get a standing ovation. Steve Nash got actually heavily booed for the most part. So they weren't exactly overly supportive of what was going on, even though people around the Barclays Center were happy. I heard a few people talking about being excited with Kevin Durant, and the poster was back up with Durant. But I will say this: obviously, I think we all knew that it was going to be a little bit of a fluke when it came to him being traded. I mean, it was going to be so difficult for the Nets to get anything that was worth him. So it was going to be tough to get him traded. But, I mean, it was the realization. And the crazy thing is just with the Nets, it's just all this drama that's been built in now. I mean, it's been an absolute disaster and a circus. Even though this is obviously going to help the Nets contend, when it comes to players wanting to come on the Nets, I don't know how you feel now. I mean, it's kind of been a circus over there.
I think it makes it. I think it makes it tougher. I mean, look. I mean, I think that they're going to go. I know it's late in the offseason and training camps are going to be starting up in the next couple of weeks and such. But so this season's roster for the start is pretty much set. But yeah, it does make you question whether or not you would want to hop on with KD and Kyrie because of how fickle they are and how easily, if something goes wrong, they're ready to jump ship. Was it because of the vaccine situation last year and then getting swept? Kyrie was never around until late in the year, really, because he was only playing half the game. He wasn't playing at all, and he was only playing half the games because they had injuries. And then, finally, like 6 games left of the season, now you can play at Barclays Center. But, I don't know how anybody, and I'm saying this as a Nets fan, I don't know how anybody would want to come to the Nets with the drama. So, I mean, they're going to have to kind of play as currently constructed, and you have to hope that it's good enough. And I don't know that it is, but again, I can't doubt a team that has Kevin Durant.
Let's go Liberty.
I mean, hey,
yeah, I think a Liberty ticket would be
to the Nets this year. So,
I think a Liberty ticket would certainly be the more affordable ticket than a Nets ticket. So I would certainly
that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, yes. Although let's give it its due. The Nets tickets are not that crazy.
But compared to going to a Liberty game compared to a Nets
course.
game,
Yeah,
I mean that's listen. There's no question that you're to get a decent seat at a Liberty game, you're gonna pay half the price you're gonna get at a Nets game. That's I think kind of the point here. I'll run through a bunch of comments just through shotgun before we move on here. And Carlos says Nash should cut his hair bald like his rookie year. I forgot if he even had a bald head back in like 1995 or 96 might have been his rookie year. I want to say maybe 96. It's been that long. John Gonzalez says the Knicks fans are just waiting for the return of Jeremy Lin. Lin's sanity, maybe. I don't know. Carlos says, who's Julius Randle? That's funny. And John also says Durant is no Julius Randle. Am I right, Brute? That was awesome. And Carlos also says Ben Simmons is not a point guard playing at the 3 or 4 and run it back. Anthony also said Charles Barkley had a great comment on KD entitled Mr. Miserable. He's not a leader and hasn't won on his own. The Mad New Yorker and the Brute. What more could we want? Carlos and the Brute Force sounds like a great show. Also here, the KD and Kyrie sounds like a podcast. Yeah, because I think Durant is doing podcasts these days. So
he's got a couple,
yeah, so that could be certainly interesting. And Dolan will free Brittany Gagne and bring her to MSG to play alongside Julius Randle.
Yeah, good luck with
tickets. I'll tell you what, it would sell tickets, and I mean that would be some great points here. So maybe we'll see all that. But we've had a lot of fun here on Sportswire Radio, and obviously we've pretty much run the gauntlet here: football, baseball, worked in some NBA, WNBA, and we are coming across to the NFL season here very shortly. NBA is back. I think October the 23rd is when the season starts, right around that time, and obviously we'll have baseball playoffs. And Anthony says Dolan and Rodman. Yes, because Rodman tried to free her and rush her, and go figure of all people, Dennis Rodman. But we have a lot to speak of here that we've done, and we'll certainly have more here next Labor Day weekend, kind of the last unofficial weekend of summer. There'll still be obviously about 4 more weekends, I would say, where it's still warm here in New York. Usually I keep my yard open till about the second or third week of October. So we still got some time, but it is getting darker earlier, and that does make us here a little bit depressed. But let's get to some closing thoughts here. I'll go to Billy McInerney first. And Billy, I'm going to give you the floor. Anything that you want to plug, share, say, and I can't thank you enough. And the floor is yours. And fire away, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me on. Great. Always great to be on the show with everyone. Catch me on Twitter at WMCINE. For closing thoughts, obviously, big series of the Mets and the Dodgers coming up. And actually, our John Heyman had an article in the Daily News, I think, talking about BA's ownership and kind of bashing them really for tearing down the team. And actually, apparently, it cost them more to go to an A's game than a Mets game, which is interesting. Actually, our good friend Don Stewart actually was the one who I saw the article on his feed. That's why I bagged it. So I thought that was interesting, and it just kind of reminded me a little bit of the Wilpons owning the Mets and how winning was not the priority compared to money, and arguably what the A's are doing now is even more flagrant than anything the Wilpons did. They cut Elvis Andrus for no reason other than he was making a lot of money, mid-season. So certainly I know like we don't the baseball obviously every issue is not solved with the CBA, and going forward that's gonna be a concern. But I was, I'm real curious how the Mets do against the Dodgers this year. I believe they split the 4 games in LA.
Yep.
If they can get 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers, that would be, I think, especially how the Dodgers have been playing lately, that would be a huge confidence builder going into that last month of the season.
Well, we'll certainly find out. Obviously, a series that we are excited for. And Anthony Finkel says pizza party at my house because we had a pizza party yesterday, and our friend Jamie Sanders joined. And what a party pooper Jamie Sanders is. And Anthony knows the running joke there. And also says the Yak Attack. No, the Yak Attack, Jacob Bard, by the way, who's been a frequent participant to Sportswire Radio, he's one of my longest tenured friends. I've known him for like a gazillion years, but he is the Yak Attack. He's really a Yak Attack. And Anthony says, final thoughts. Sunday night, the beatdown tour continues as Chris, the Urban Warrior, hits the ring at House of Glory Wrestling at Terminal 5, which is at 610 West 56th Street, right off the West Side Highway. And, of course, I will be there with Mr. Jamie Sanders and our very good friend Rashid and Mr. Anthony Finkel. And Anthony says he's watching with us. Oh, Jacob Bard was watching. He's watching with Anthony Finkel. Is Yak Attack Jacob Bard going Sunday, or is he watching just now? Because I don't see him on Facebook. Because usually he would call me and tell me, I just heard you speak with this person and that person. But okay, well, I'll definitely see you regardless, and maybe I'll see the Yak Attack Jacob Bard, but God help us if he's going to be with us in the ring. But hey, who knows, right? But Justin Gianelli, let me give you the floor. Any closing thoughts, anything you want to share, anything baseball banter related, and can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you. It's nice to be back after a couple of weeks off. Obviously, I was on vacation last week. Wasn't feeling too hot a couple of weeks ago, but
sure,
good to be back. I was definitely raring to go. And one of the benefits of DeGrom pitching last night for the Mets is now that he's guaranteed locked in to pitch against the LA Dodgers, and you really want as many of your best horses as possible. Obviously, if things continue the way they are, should probably be Bassett on Thursday and Walker on Tuesday. So you're lining up, 3 solid pitchers, against the Dodgers. Obviously, they'll miss Scherzer because Scherzer's pitching Sunday, but they didn't have Scherzer or DeGrom in the first series. And the Mets are a healthier bunch right now, even with a couple of their injuries. With Escobar down, Guillorme down, Carrasco's down, but they're in a much healthier state right now, and the Mets are, they've played just solid baseball all season long with a couple of really hot streaks, and that's kind of been the MO of this team this year. You've never really seen this team go on an extended poor stretch of baseball. And I think that's really been what's been the most exciting about this Mets team. On the flip side, because I was just watching the end of the Braves game against the Cardinals, I got to say something because, I don't know if this came out last week or early this week, and I was still not around to comment on it, but what the hell were the Braves doing not cutting Marcell Ozuna?
Yeah, we spoke about that last week on the show.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so because last Friday I didn't watch because I was away. So
yep.
But I mean, what the hell are they doing not, cutting Marcelo Zuna? He had the domestic violence incident last year where he ended up getting suspended a measly 20 games. And then he's a repeat offender, and then he has the DUI. I guess late last week, and he's clearly a problem. And they don't play him much to begin with, so I don't know why they're not just cutting their losses and getting rid of him. He's clearly a trash human being, and he makes stupid decisions. And then they had the nerve to start him. I think the night after or something like that, and the fans couldn't care less. I mean, the fans, the announcers, nobody could care less anymore. I think everybody's just fed up with him, and I think it's time that his baseball career ends. That's really, my thoughts on the Ozuna situation. I mean, he's just a garbage human being. So we should return with baseball banter this weekend. I know it's been a little bit of a hiatus, but now I'm back in New York and ready to roll. So, although I will be at Mets Pirates at PNC on Labor Day.
Oh, very cool.
And fingers are crossed that the Mets pitching rotation does not change, because if DeGrom pitches Wednesday against the Dodgers, he's likely pitching Monday at PNC.
All right. Well, we'll certainly see here. And before I get to Chris, I got a couple of comments I want to get to comically. And John Gonzalez says DeForest Pizza, one bite only, which he's referring to in Midwood. Of course, the legendary Dom DeMarco. And Anthony Finkel says, John Gonzalez, that's right down the block from me, Avenue J and East 15th Street. I have been there before. And John says Dave Portnoy loves that pizza. Yeah, he does love that pizza, but I've had better pizza, honestly, than DeForest. And I don't have a problem saying that. Anthony Finkel says John Gonzalez, he also rated La Duca Pizza, which is in Newkirk Plaza by the Q line, as a solid. Yeah, La Duca's good. I think I'd take DeFara over La Duca, but I would definitely take maybe Lucia Pizza over that. And Joey Bostrom for you, Justin, says, Justin, PNC is a beautiful park. Enjoy the game. Yes, because Joey has been to PNC Park. I know Joey has told me that story in the past because Joey has seen different baseball stadiums, and Joey definitely, would tell you. And can't wait to see you, Joey.
That's what I'm working on. So,
and we're looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward.
The prices this year were more affordable. My buddy and I were going to do Progressive Field in Cleveland, but for some reason, the Guardians tickets are really expensive.
Well, they're playing better right now. I think the attendance has picked up there a little bit, and in Pittsburgh, plenty of seats available, and that's a situation there. I'm sure that plays into it. And Joey, looking forward to seeing you soon, hopefully. And Chris, I want to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts, anything that you want to plug, share, say, and the floor is yours. And fire away, my friend.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, guys. Great show. It was great to see you guys again. I know we've been out a couple of weeks. Yeah, looking forward to this week. Sharman and I are going to do kind of a NFL preview of the season this year. We're going to run through each division. So that'll be good. That'll go up Tuesday or Wednesday. And this week, me and Patrick will just keep talking about the Yankees and Red Sox. Red Sox and Yankees are basically going in opposite directions at this point. Red Sox are just falling out of it slowly. I mean, they won today, but so we'll just keep going on that. So that's about it, man. The shows. Liftoff Jets is the Jets podcast, and Talking Rivals is the baseball one. You could reach them both on Twitter at Talking Rivals, at Liftoff Jets, and myself at CP7NY.
Excellent stuff here. And also, Anthony Finkel has one question for you, Chris. And he says, how was the 21 Pilots concert?
It was actually pretty good. It was the third time I've taken my daughter to see them. And they were
okay.
And the garden right now is a total mess. That whole area, they're redoing.
Yes, I was there. That's right, because I passed by.
Penn Station is just a poop show right now. So, and getting back to the pizza, I've never, I grew up in Brooklyn, not too far from DeFara's, and I never went there. I went to Da Vinci.
You never went to DeFara?
No.
Wow.
No.
You never went to DeFara's. Wow. What a small
I've been, like my favorite growing up was Da Vinci's on 65th and 18th
20th Avenue. Was it? Oh, right. 18th and 64th on the corner. Yeah. Yep. Still there.
Of course, LMB And then corner pizza.
L&B, honestly,
I really grew up.
the quality of L&B, honestly, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for saying
I haven't been there in a while, so
it is declined.
Really?
I have been to L&B a lot, and L&B's quality has really declined. It's not what it used to be at all. And L&B does not make a round slice of pizza. It's like the worst round slice of pizza anybody could ever have.
I don't think I've ever had a round slice of pizza from them.
But there are people will say to try it. But L&B, honestly, it's good. If I'm there in that neighborhood, I'll have it.
Right.
But it's not what it used to be. Yeah, Da Vinci's was good. J&V is over there as well. J&V on 18th Avenue is good. So yeah, there's still
corner. Anthony knows corner, probably East Third and Church.
Yeah, I've heard it. I have not had that. Yeah, I've not had there, but I haven't had that.
Solid pizza, not great, but it's not bad. It's like
Lenny and John's is very good, and Anthony knows it. Over in Marine Park on Flatbush Avenue, that's a very good one. Still there, that's a classic one. Frank's sucks. Original is pretty good, but that's more Mill Basin. But we could talk pizza all day, and half the people will be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And Anthony also says, "Yeah, corner pizza in Kensington." Yeah, I haven't been to corner, but I
grew
know
up like
of it.
3 blocks from there. From corner.
That's like by 18th Avenue down there, McDonald Avenue, I'm pretty sure, right? East 3rd and Church, kind of just past McDonald Avenue over there, if I'm not mistaken, in that area. Yeah, I passed by there. Yep, I've heard of it, haven't had it, but maybe that'll change. But be that as it may, because I could talk pizza all day, but it is time, certainly, that we haven't saved the best for last, but we've saved the biggest for last, and the best for last, I don't know, but his name is the Brute Force Brad Weiss, and certainly I turn it over to you because you always have a lot to say, and fire away. You know the drill, and the floor is yours. And also, by the way, happy National Dog Day for our dog lovers here. I want to make sure that we say happy National Dog Day for your dog, especially the Brute Force Bradley Weiss. So I turn over to you, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, Cooper will definitely appreciate that. So thank you for another great week of the Sports Report. Thank you, Chris, Justin, Billy. Nice to see all you guys back this week. Definitely another fun week of the show. Of course, as always, you can follow me on Instagram at BWeiss20, searching Twitter at BradWeiss20, and searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook. So a few closing thoughts. Number one, I want to give a shout out because the purple shirt today is actually for our police activity league camps I'm wearing today. And today was the final day of camp. So I want to give a shout out to the camps, all the great staff members who have worked for me the last couple weeks, including James D. Simone, Jason Gitz, Kelly Dempsey, Ed Dempsey.
Love Kelly Dempsey, by the way. Love Kelly Dempsey.
Brian Stewart. There are a bunch of guys, the entire staff, and all the people that work in the Hicksville Athletic Center. I want to thank you all for a great summer, 3 weeks of basketball camp. And in fact, Tom Bryce, most of the staff at the Hicksville Athletic Center, we've created a 12-man fantasy football league that we're going to be doing starting 2 weeks for the draft. So I'm definitely excited for that and more fantasy football this year and many upset alerts as well. So I'm excited for football season. And that will start with our fantasy football league over at the Hicksville Athletic Center. So I want to thank those guys. I also want to talk, and obviously Anthony Finkel can back me up on this, about the New York Liberty. I want to congratulate them on a great season. Obviously a tough loss at home against the Chicago Sky, but considering they beat them on the road, they had a tough second game, and the third game was competitive. But champions are champions, and the Chicago Sky were the champions last year. They're a great team, and the fact that the New York Liberty competed at the level that they did against a great team shows that they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the future. So I can't be more excited to go back to Barclays Center next year and watch the Liberty. I'm also really happy to say that through my interest in the team, as well as us talking about it here on the show, many people have started to respect the WNBA and the New York Liberty, and have even told me that they're going to come to a game next year. So I'm really happy for that. They deserve it. They're a great team, and the women's basketball product is only growing, and the WNBA is going to grow as well. So I thank everyone who's supporting women's basketball and the WNBA and the New York Liberty. Of course, again, extremely excited. Finkel was there. It was really loud. The rally.
I really regret I wasn't there, honestly. Unfortunately, I had to go to something, and I really would much rather have been at the Liberty game. Let me just put it that way.
I mean, like Anthony said, the crowd was going wild. They gave us rally towels. When they made a run in the fourth quarter and cut it to 4, the place was going nuts.
Yeah, I
It was
saw with 5 minutes left, right? It was 5 or 6 minutes left. It was 4, I think.
It was like 8 or 9 minutes left, and then
Yeah.
they made a big run. But listen, the Liberty should be proud of themselves. I'm excited for the future, and I'm also excited for the future with our New York Mets. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the season as well. There was a chance I was going to the game tomorrow, but it doesn't look like I am now. So it'll be exciting to see all the legends and the big old Mets players at Old Timers Day tomorrow. I'll be watching that. So looking forward to seeing that as well, and the Dodgers series amongst other things. So there's a lot of exciting things going on here as we approach the fall season. We have our Level Up tryouts, Long Island Nets clinic this weekend. So there's a lot going on. I'm looking forward to it. But I'm also looking forward to a nice day off tomorrow because I've done 7 straight weeks of summer basketball camp. So I'm excited for a day off, a week off, and soon enough, the high school basketball season, everything will be back, and I'm super excited for that, as well as many other things.
Well, college basketball schedules just came out. I saw Brooklyn's schedule came out last week, and of course, our Golden Eagles are on that schedule. I know Yeshiva's schedule has been out for a while, so we're going to start to see the schedules trickling in. So it's all coming sooner rather than later. We're going to be at some games in about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I'm not trying to rush the warm weather to get out of here, but at the same time, there's no better time in the year than basketball season and football season, in my opinion. So it's an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to it.
I definitely do miss watching our Golden Eagles. I miss watching John Jay. I miss watching all those teams here. So I'm looking forward to all of that here. And also, Geno Smith is named the starter in Seattle. So Geno Smith lives on the legacy of Geno Smith and Jets quarterback. So
honestly, not much of a surprise. It's kind of picking one of 2 garbage cans. Drew Lock just happens to be worse.
Well, it reminds me of what I read from one of my wrestlers that I'm friends with. I don't even want to repeat it, but yeah, I mean, look.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But those are some fun comments there. But certainly, of course, we'll see what Geno Smith brings. We'll see what the Liberty bring. Obviously, looking forward to some basketball, some postseason baseball, NFL season, and also John Gonzalez says Geno Smith worst quarterback ever. Yeah, he's up. I mean, he's up there when it comes to all-time starting quarterback.
Probably.
He's definitely in the discussion. I mean, if you want to ask me, I bring out my old football card collection. I could maybe talk about some other quarterbacks that were pretty bad. I mean, there's definitely some names. I mean, Ryan Leaf, I would think, would have to be in there in the discussion. Yeah, I would throw him in there. But we could go all day on those names. I do want to thank John Gonzalez one more time of the Sports Authorities group. And, of course, Sports Authorities on Facebook. Many of us are members and post there regularly. Also, one more time, I want to wish a happy birthday to Jason Gordieso and Jason Festina. I wish them both a happy birthday on Instagram and Facebook, the Brew Force. So you were covered for. So you don't have to worry too much about that. Obviously, Coach Gordieso's stepson, Joseph, also wished him a very happy birthday. Hope he had a great day. And if you're on sportnarium.com/player, you'll go back to our regularly scheduled program. We'll also have our live DJ tomorrow. Once again, 80 is back, 80 and Steve. And also Joey Bostrom says here, great show once again. Good to see the group back together. And the Brute Force, thanks for accepting my friend request. I watched the Liberty Game 3. Tough loss, great season. I tell you what, Joey Bostrom, one of these days, we got to get that burger, man. Anthony Finkel. Me, Anthony Finkel, and you, Joey Bostrom. We get that burger at Duffy's. Maybe the Brute Force joins us because he owes us a receipt on coming back to the North Shore of Staten Island. So we all get that burger soon. I tell you what, Joey Bostrom, we make that happen. You message me, and that'll be a sight for the ages. So let's definitely see. It's been a long time since I've seen you, Joey. Joey, I think it's been like 3 or 4 years since I bumped into you. So John also says, great, all kidding aside, excellent show, guys, including you, Brew. Yeah, John wanted to remind me how much he enjoyed the Brute Force, especially this week. But certainly, if you are on Sportswire Radio, give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. We're also working on something here in the coming days. I hope to have an announcement for, so I'm excited if that will come into the pike. That'll help everybody out. Also want to thank our DJ 80, who was here all day spinning tunes for us, and certainly looking forward to him back on the air tomorrow. And we will be back also Monday, 2:30 Eastern Time with Travis Cox of the Wrestling Appreciation Society, and later on the mysterious Mr. B. And Anthony also says, true story, excellent show this week. Love seeing all the guys back together. And Anthony, looking forward to Sunday, even with the party pooper poser, Jamie Sanders. But in the meantime, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We were with Billy McInerney, Justin Gianelli, Chris Pizzea, and the legendary brute force Bradley Weiss, the head coach from our Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV basketball team, also the Long Island Nets, Level Up, Long Island Brew Crew, and, of course, our SJC New York Golden Eagles. Men's basketball alum. I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Let's go Mets. Let's go Yankees. Let's go Judge. Maybe even Polos, Jets, Giants, anything else you like. I'll root for you. And we'll be back here Friday night with the gang regularly, and I'll be back Monday as well with Travis Cox of the Wrestling Appreciation Society. Thank you, everybody. Good night. And we'll be back here different time, but the same bat channel. Thank you.